A desperate man named Jojo is about to destroy his family's only hope, faced with a choice that could supposedly let him do it all over again. This whole town's watching, calling him a loser for trying to butcher his family's prize cows, and they can't figure out what pushed him to this, since those animals meant everything to him. With the blade ready, everyone just assumes he's finally lost his mind, but his expression is anything but crazy as he prepares to make the cut. He knows he can't waste another second, gripping the handle with total conviction, when a woman's voice cuts through the tension, calling out his name, Jojo. He immediately stops, turning to see who's interrupting his grand plan, and it's the very girl he's doing this for, telling him to stop daydreaming because she'll never marry him. Turns out she's already promised to a rich guy for a ton of cash and a car, and she tells Jojo to just give up since his cows are all he has. Which makes the villagers realize this is all over a girl and beg him not to be stupid. But he just cuts them off with a cold question, asking if they're finally done talking, telling everyone to get lost if they're finished because they're wasting his time. And the girl is absolutely stunned by his sudden disrespect, grinding out her cigarette as she scoffs about even trying to reason with him, calling him trash before turning her back on the whole scene, while Jojo just watches her walk away without a single change in his expression, and the rest of the crowd starts to follow her lead, leaving him to it. But just as the last of the crowd disperses, a new voice cries out, asking what he's doing, and Jojo turns around completely stunned by who he sees. It's his own parents, who've just shown up and are begging him to put the knife down. He just stares at them, whispering, "Dad! Mom!" before letting the blade drop from his hand. A strange, almost unnerving smile spreads across his face as he mutters that this is great, and he walks toward his confused but relieved parents, repeating the word like a mantra. Then he pulls them into a desperate hug, just holding them as if to confirm they're real. This few remaining villagers just roll their eyes, mocking the whole scene as cheap drama. But Jojo is lost in the moment, vowing to himself that this time he will protect them, promising he won't let his brother or a girl named Xiaomei get hurt again either. His mom is the first to break the silence, asking what could have possibly happened to him, while his dad just thinks he's completely lost it and is spouting nonsense. But Jojo insists he's not crazy and that these cows have to go, even if he can't explain why, pleading with them to just trust him this one time and not get in his way. His parents exchange a long, silent look before his father seems to make a decision, and he picks up the very knife his son had just dropped to the ground, saying he doesn't understand. But he knows his college-educated son must have a good reason. Jojo is completely stunned by this sudden, unwavering show of faith, as his dad raises the blade and declares that if it has to be done, he'll help him do it. Meanwhile, his mom just watches with a quiet, supportive smile on her face. An old woman tells Jojo's mom to stop her husband from joining their son's crazy plan, but his mom just fires back that the old lady is the one who's truly out of her mind, and she joins her family, insisting that she's going to help them with this too. This last of the villagers just gossip that the entire Joe family has officially lost it, figuring this is exactly why that girl dumped him in the first place. But Jojo checks his phone, realizing with a jolt that he's running out of time. He calculates he only has about 4 hours left and knows they have to hurry, so he shouts out to the crowd, asking for 3 people to help him butcher the cows. He offers 500 yuan per person, which immediately gets the attention of some tough-looking guys. And suddenly a whole group is fighting over the job, each claiming to be the strongest. Without wasting a moment, Jojo points to the 2 toughest-looking guys in the bunch, who immediately drop their little power struggle to accept the high-paying gig. He then rounds out his crew by picking a third, much more cheerful-looking man, and as the 3 get down to business, Jojo is already on his phone making another move, dialing a contact named Boss Zhang to unload the product as quickly as possible. He offers the guy a crazy deal, half the market price for everything, but it has to be cash now. Moments later, a truck comes barreling in, ready to load up and get out of there. With the deal done and the truck gone, Jojo drops a heavy bag of money for his crew, calmly counting out the promised 500 yuan for each of the 3 helpers. But one of them can't help but comment on the obvious, that Jojo just lost tens of thousands on that sale. Jojo clutches the bag of cash, promising himself his parents will soon understand his reasons, telling them to go straight home and lock the doors, not opening for anyone until he returns. His dad agrees without question, saying his son has never let them down before. And with their full support, Jojo hops into the truck to get started on his real mission. He shouts one last desperate warning to lock everything and stay inside no matter what happens, then peels out of the village, the clock on his dashboard ticking down the final minutes. While driving, he runs through a mental checklist. They have food, but now he needs weapons and medicine, because in just 2 hours, the entire world is about to be plunged into a zombie apocalypse. He knows it all starts with the livestock, which will mutate into bloodthirsty monsters attacking everything, and anyone they bite will turn too, losing all reason to become just another flesh-hungry creature. He's seen this future before. In just 1 month, the world is overrun with infected, and last time, he was completely helpless as his entire family was taken from him. He has no idea why he was sent back to the past, but he's damn sure not going to let that tragedy repeat itself. So he uses the cash to buy everything he can think of for survival: tools, medicine, and a generator. But there's one last, absolutely crucial item on his list: gunpowder. He knows that in the early days of the apocalypse, having a stockpile is the ultimate advantage, because the person with enough firepower can basically become a warlord overnight, which is why he's come to meet the man who controls the local supply, a shady-looking boss who seems pretty amused that some kid is here to talk big business. This boss's secretary immediately recognizes Jojo, and she does not look happy to see him, as he walks in and drops a massive bag right on the table in front of them. He ignores her completely, telling the boss he's here to talk business, then unzips the bag to show it's packed with 100,000 yuan in cash. This boss looks genuinely surprised for a second, not expecting this kind of money, but his expression quickly shifts to a smug grin as he connects the dots. He lets out a small laugh, finally understanding what's going on here, which explodes into a full-blown cackle as he finds the whole thing hilarious. He mocks JoJo for actually gathering the betrothal gift a girl named Li Qin wanted, and Li Qin herself panics, trying to tell her boss she's no longer involved with him. JoJo cuts right to the chase, offering 100 grand for 1 kilogram of black gunpowder. But the boss, Lin Jae, just scoffs at the college student, asking if he's trying to be funny, and he tries to play innocent, claiming his company is completely legitimate and above board. That's when JoJo brings up a very specific incident from last December involving a woman's body, asking Lin Jae directly if he remembers, which wipes the smirk right off the boss's face. He then lays out the deal, sell him the gunpowder, and his dirty little secret stays buried. After a tense silence, Lin Jae calls over his secretary, Xiao Qing, to handle the situation, giving her a coded order about needing to check the seasonal inventory, and telling her to get rid of any damp product by giving it to their new college friend. With a smug look, Lin Jae confirms that this little transaction will now be just between them. But before leaving, JoJo turns to the secretary Xiao Qing with one last thing to say, explaining that her family once helped his, so he's repaying an old debt of gratitude, and he promises that in the future, he will help her just once if she's ever in trouble. Xiao Qing just glares back, clearly not happy about this strange offer from him, and with that settled, JoJo turns his attention back to the boss, Lin Jae, offering a handshake to seal their happy cooperation now that business is concluded. But Lin Jae just sits there silently, watching him with a calculating stare. A slow, amused grin spreads across the boss's face as he finds this kid fascinating, calling JoJo very interesting with a look that's far more predatory than friendly. And just as their deal is struck, the sky outside darkens as a low rumble echoes ominously. JoJo screeches to a halt right in front of his family's home, knowing he's got about 30 minutes left before everything goes to hell. He immediately calls out for his parents, announcing that he's back, and a voice from inside responds that they're coming to the door. But it's his brother who opens up, immediately asking what's gotten into him today, since he's already heard the rumors about JoJo selling off all their cows. Ignoring the question, JoJo asks where Xiao Mei is, only to hear she's not back yet. This news completely floors him, because that's not how it's supposed to happen, realizing with dawning horror that his actions might have changed the timeline. Without a second thought, he jumps back in the truck, determined to find her himself. JoJo shouts one last warning for his brother to stay locked inside, vowing to bring Xiao Mei home, and his brother can only watch helplessly from the gate as the truck speeds off. He floors it out of the village, kicking up a massive cloud of dust in his wake, racing down the highway as the sun sinks lower on the horizon. He recalls the first day's chaos. It was the animals that mutated first, not the people, which means the packed town school is going to fall way faster than the village. Just as he vows to protect his family this time, a massive creature suddenly appears in his path, and with no time to swerve, the truck makes a sickening impact. This collision throws JoJo forward, slamming him hard against the steering wheel, leaving the mangled remains of the mutated beast splattered all over the road behind him. Still reeling from the impact, JoJo tries to make sense of what just happened, catching sight of the creature he just ran over on the road. And he can't believe his eyes, because that's no normal animal, realizing with dawning horror the mutations have started way ahead of schedule. Meanwhile, an hour earlier, his sister was still at Qingshan Middle School, where the classroom gossip was already buzzing about JoJo's crazy morning, with everyone talking about how he sold off his family's assets for a girl. One classmate mockingly calls him the town's most dedicated simp, then turns to his sister, asking if she's embarrassed by her brother's reputation, but Jo Ying just keeps her head down, completely ignoring the petty drama. This classmate keeps running her mouth, calling JoJo crazy and suggesting the whole family is nuts, which is the last straw for Jo Ying, who slams her hand down on the desk, catching the bully completely off guard with her sudden ferocity. But the girl just doubles down, taunting her that even their parents are enabling the madness, and the second she calls the whole family crazy, she gets a hard slap right across the face. Before the girl can even process it, Jo Ying snatches her phone and smashes it against the wall, which makes the bully absolutely lose it, screaming that Jo Ying is dead for that. But Jo Ying doesn't even flinch, just giving her a cold, dismissive glare, and as she turns to leave, the stunned girl asks what the hell she thinks she's doing now. Jo Ying just calmly picks up her own tablet, completely done with this conversation. Just then, a teacher walks in, forcing the bully to quickly change her tune and pretend she was just returning the tablet. But the teacher is completely unimpressed by the terrible acting, staring her down in silence. She calls out the bully, Li Xiaoya, reminding her she's already on thin ice for breaking the no-phone rule before, and this time she's not playing around. She's calling her father to come deal with it personally. Jo Ying is simply told to return to her seat, which she does without another word, leaving the bully to give a fake apology to the girl whose phone got smashed, blaming the teacher's arrival. She follows it up with a smug promise to be more careful with her revenge next time. which leaves the other girl absolutely seething, whispering Zhou Ying's name with pure rage. At that exact moment, the sky outside the school darkens as a heavy rain begins to fall, and suddenly the bully gets slammed hard against the wall by some unseen force. This girl, whose phone got smashed now as Li Xiaoya cornered, mocking her for being so quiet, grabbing her by the hair while trying to provoke her into saying anything at all. Li Xiaoya just endures it, realizing they're supposed to be on cleaning duty together. So the bully pulls out a box cutter with a sinister smile, threatening to help open her mouth if she won't do it herself. At that exact moment, Jojo is racing through the downpour in his truck, knowing he's finally closing in on his sister's school. But what he sees through the windshield makes his blood run cold. Students are pouring out of the gates, screaming for everyone to run for their lives. And back inside, the box cutter has already found its mark, leaving a grim scene behind. But before the bully can make her move, she suddenly chokes, looking horribly sick, and collapses to the floor, violently throwing up a disturbing amount of black liquid. This girl, whose phone was smashed, is stunned, asking if she's okay, completely terrified by the sight, and immediately runs out of the room to try and find a teacher for help. But when she reaches the hallway window, the entire schoolyard is already in total chaos, with students running and screaming for their lives in the pouring rain. She turns back around only to see another student standing over a body looking just as infected, and his face twists into a monstrous snarl as he lets out an inhuman roar, launching himself directly at her while she scrambles backward in pure panic. She begs it to stay away, just as something else suddenly attacks the creature from behind. This girl is horrified to see her attacker is none other than Li Xiaoya, who's now making some seriously inhuman sounds, and her face twists into a monstrous grin, revealing she's completely turned. While outside, even more infected students are starting to swarm the building, and the newly turned bully grabs Zhou Ying, easily overpowering her, pinning her down with a grip that's far from human. In a last desperate moment, she screams for her brother to save her, and right on cue, Jojo crashes through the window with a flying kick, leaving his sister completely stunned that he actually showed up, before he lands and immediately squares up against another infected student without missing a beat. Jojo casually remarks that her screaming was so loud it was almost embarrassing, as the infected student lunges forward with one last inhuman roar. And just like that, the threat is handled, with Jojo noting he heard her from a mile away. He then smirks at his sister, claiming he only rushed over to laugh at her predicament. And through her tears, Zhou Ying just calls him a stupid brother, clearly relieved he's there. But outside, the situation is getting way worse, with infected swarming the school grounds, turning the entire road into a scene of pure chaos littered with abandoned cars and fallen students. And one of the infected spots their truck's headlights cutting through the downpour. Without even slowing down, Jojo just plows straight through the crowd, sending bodies flying, and now safely inside, Zhou Ying can only watch the grim scene unfold through the window. As the truck speeds on, Zhou Ying is just staring out at the absolute chaos, but instead of being scared, she's actually finding the whole situation incredibly exciting, even comparing it to a realistic zombie game and praising how he sent her bully flying. Though Joe cuts her off, telling her it's okay to be scared and he won't judge her for it, explaining that the world has changed and they all have to learn how to survive now. He then promises to protect her, swearing that their entire family is going to be fine. Hearing this, his sister's fear seems to melt away into a quiet sense of trust, and she looks at him with total faith, saying she believes in him completely. Finally, their truck pulls into their village under the light of a full moon, and Zhou Ying immediately calls out for their parents, announcing that they're home. The second they get to the door, their parents are already there waiting for them, and the whole family is just relieved to see Jojo and his sister are back safe. But he immediately cuts to the chase, asking if anything has happened at home yet. His mom explains there were strange people outside, but they were too scared to look, which confirms Jojo's fears that the timeline is way more screwed up than he thought. His brother, still totally clueless, asks why he bought enough supplies to start a war, but Jojo just tells them to unload the truck and get everything inside, fast. He then gives them a grim warning to protect the house while he goes to find someone. And surprisingly, it's his sister who tells their parents to trust him completely, because she can't help but notice her brother seems like a different person now. Jojo realizes his body has changed, deciding to test his new limits while searching for a key person, knowing if she still has her powers from his past life, she'll be an incredible asset. And with that, he takes to the rooftops, leaping across the village under the full moon. While inside a nearby building, someone desperately yells that they can't hold on much longer. A group of survivors are frantically trying to break down a door, oblivious to a dazed man standing nearby. And in another room, a girl named Xiaosha is cornered, screaming at people for trying to bite her. But her plea is cut short when a monstrous hand smashes through the glass right beside her head, just as two men with makeshift weapons rush in, yelling for her to get out of the way. They start swinging wildly at whatever's breaking through, creating a chaotic scene right in front of her, but instead of panicking, Xiaosha's expression suddenly hardens with cold resolve. Just as things look hopeless, Jojo makes a grand entrance by crashing through the window, landing right in the middle of the chaos in front of the terrified survivors who see he's already taken one of the creatures down before they could even react. leaving Xiaoxia completely stunned and trying to process what's even happening. But Jojo doesn't waste a second, vaulting over a desk to face the next wave, and the two men with her immediately recognize him as the Zhou family's kid, though he barely acknowledges them, his eyes locked onto the remaining threats, while Xiaoxia is still just frozen, watching this guy she barely knows fight like a demon, and right on cue, he intercepts another infected one lunging straight for her, ending the threat with a single, brutal strike before it can even touch her. Xiaoxia finally gets a clear look at her rescuer, barely recognizing him as Jojo, who immediately grabs her face to check her over for any signs of injury, making sure no infected blood got in her eyes or mouth, knowing this is the girl he's been looking for. He asks if she's been bitten or scratched anywhere, and she quickly confirms she's okay, but the other survivors are just staring in absolute horror at what he's done, with one of them trying to tell him he can't just go around killing people like that. Jojo just calmly clarifies that he didn't actually kill any people at all, explaining that those things are zombies, and if their blood touches you, you'll turn too. This guy with the glasses refuses to believe it, screaming that this isn't some kind of comic book, pointing out that one of the bodies was their neighbor, Lao Zhang, whose family is also missing. This guy with the glasses insists this is way over their heads and they need to call the police, but Jojo immediately shuts that down, telling them it's completely useless at this point. That's when some new guy in a suit steps forward to address the entire room, and he immediately starts painting Jojo as some kind of rampant murderer. He twists the situation, claiming Jojo took out dozens of people and thinks he's above the law, which is all it takes for one of the survivors to start calling for his capture. Suddenly, the entire crowd is riled up, chanting to take down the murderer in their midst, while Jojo just stands there silently, letting them scream their accusations. This man in the suit just smirks, mocking the zombie excuse and asking if he has superpowers too. Xiaoxia tries to get them to listen, but her voice is completely drowned out by the mob's demands. Just as the mob is about to make their move, Xiaoxia jumps to his defense, yelling that Jojo is the one who saved them all, but he just cuts her off with a simple thanks, stepping forward to handle this himself. Jojo then makes a bold claim. He can prove they're zombies and knows where their missing families are, asking for just one volunteer to come with him and see the truth with their own eyes. He then turns his attention to the man in the suit, Lin Jae, the one who started all this, and with a chilling smile, he asks if the guy dares to come along and find out. Lin Jae is internally sweating, realizing Jojo's strange behavior. All day means he knows something dangerous, while Jojo connects the dots for everyone, a lot of missing people and an inaccessible forest nearby. Before kicking one of the bodies and asking Lin Jae if he's still so sure it isn't a zombie, Jojo calls his bluff, asking Lin Jae if he's too scared to come see the truth for himself, and the guy plays the victim, saying of course he's scared of a so-called murderer, but for the sake of the village, he heroically agrees to go along with the plan. Of course, he's bringing his own crew of goons for protection, which is totally not suspicious, already scheming on how he's going to force Jojo to spill all his secrets. Just as they're about to leave, Xiaoxia suddenly volunteers to join the little expedition, and her colleagues immediately try to shut her down, insisting it's way too dangerous out there. She argues that since they're village officials, it's their job to step up now that their boss is gone, which gets Jojo's attention, who casually asks where exactly the village secretary went. Turns out he went searching for the missing villagers earlier and just never came back. Another guy pipes up that his own relative is missing, adding to the growing list, and Jojo listens intently, clearly connecting all these disappearances to the forest. Inspired by Xiaoxia, the guy with glasses declares he's going too, since their boss already went out there, arguing it's their duty as officials to investigate, especially since Jojo has clues. An older official just sighs, clearly not thrilled with this whole plan, but he relents anyway, tossing them the keys to a couple of vans for the trip. With that, the group heads out into the ominous moonlit forest, where they almost immediately stumble upon an abandoned car just sitting in the road. Xiaoxia instantly recognizes it. That's the village secretary's car, right where he left it, and after a quick check, they confirm the engine's cold and he's not answering his phone. Jojo recalls this forest is where the first horde came from in his past life, realizing he can stop it early and finally earn Xiaoxia's complete trust. He tells everyone to keep moving and search carefully as they head deeper into the woods, while one of the older officials just sighs, knowing they have no other choice. Of course, Lin Jae and his crew are trailing right behind them, looking for trouble, as another official calls out for the missing village secretary with no response. Xiaoxia worries they won't find anyone in a forest this massive, but Jojo immediately corrects her, saying a lot of people were here recently. He then shines his light on the ground, revealing fresh footprints in the mud, along with broken branches and obvious bloodstains on the nearby leaves. Jojo realizes all the signs point to a classic zombie gathering spot. Knowing this is the very first day of the outbreak and the source is close, and right on cue, he spots a cave entrance, telling everyone to stop right there, announcing it's too dangerous for the whole group, so he's going in alone to scout. Of course, Lin Jae immediately questions why he'd want to go in by himself, accusing him of trying to get in first to destroy evidence of his murders. This whole group just stands there at the mouth of the cave, waiting to see what happens, while Xiaoxia and the other officials look on with obvious concern for Jojo. But he just turns back to Lin Jae, calling him a coward who's all talk, daring the guy to come inside and guess whether it's filled with corpses. Lin Jae is absolutely sweating, finally realizing JoJo wasn't bluffing about the danger, and it hits him that the kid was genuinely ready to take him out just a moment ago. But his fear quickly twists into a predatory smile, finding this new side of JoJo interesting. He figures whatever secret JoJo is hiding must be in that cave. So he follows him inside, and almost immediately a grotesque hand reaches out from the pitch-black darkness, revealing a disheveled woman who stumbles out into the open, clearly not in her right mind. This guy with glasses from their group instantly recognizes her, calling out her name in relief, and he rushes forward, completely oblivious, just happy that he finally found her after searching all day. JoJo screams at him to stay back and not touch her, but the warning comes too late, because the guy is still talking about how glad he is she's okay as she turns on him, fully infected. Before the guy can even get bit, JoJo intercepts the infected woman, stopping her cold, but the man with glasses is still in denial, calling out her name as if she can hear him, and JoJo just tells him that the person he knew is already gone. With that, he ends the threat permanently, right in front of the horrified survivors, leaving the guy who almost died staring at the aftermath in absolute shock. Lin Jae immediately asks if he was injured in the chaos, clearly trying to stir something up, but the man with glasses isn't listening, instead accusing JoJo of killing Ah Shin, his disbelief twisting into pure rage as he clenches his fist, and through tears he screams that JoJo is a murderer who will pay for this. He then grabs a makeshift weapon, fully intending to attack the one person who just saved his life. This guy with glasses is just completely broken, calling JoJo a murderer for what he just did, his grief quickly twisting into pure rage as he swears JoJo will pay for killing Ah Shin. While Xiao Xia and the others look on horrified, Lin Jae is just chilling in the back with a smug grin, and with a furious yell, the grieving husband swings his makeshift weapon right at JoJo's head. JoJo, completely unfazed, disarms him with a single fluid motion that sends the guy flying, telling him it's fine to be mad, to hate him, and to feel regret for what's happened. But none of that changes the hard truth that Ah Shin was already a zombie and had to be stopped. He explains his only goal is to make sure the people who are still alive get to stay that way. This husband just collapses to the ground, screaming that it's all just a bunch of nonsense, yelling that Ah Sin was his wife and asking how JoJo could be so damn calm about it all. JoJo slowly turns around, his patience completely snapped by the ungrateful accusation, and with a look that could freeze hell over, he asks the guy to repeat himself. Before the grieving husband can even blink, JoJo is on him, grabbing him by the throat, effortlessly lifting the man clean off the ground with one hand. He asks if he's been too kind, reminding them he came to help and has saved their lives repeatedly, then makes a chilling promise that anyone who dares to touch his family will be dealt with. Xiao Xia screams for him to stop, horrified by the sudden turn of events, but Lin Jae just smirks, smugly declaring this proves JoJo is the murderer he claimed. His little speech is cut short as he's suddenly interrupted, looking off to the side, right as a fist comes flying out of nowhere, stopping just inches from his face. This fist belongs to a new guy who grabs JoJo's arm, stopping him from choking the ungrateful survivor, and he tells JoJo to calm down, calling him by name like he actually knows him. JoJo is completely thrown off by the interruption, finally breaking his death stare to see who it is, while the newcomer just gives a disappointed tesk, clearly not a fan of the whole situation. With his focus broken, JoJo lets go, dropping the husband to the ground gasping for air. But instead of a friendly reunion, the new guy immediately clocks JoJo right in the face. This punch sends him stumbling backward, completely caught off guard by the sudden attack, and he lands flat on his back, with his supposed rescuer now looming over him. Looking up from the ground, JoJo finally recognizes him, weakly asking if it's his big brother. And his brother just smirks, saying the brat is finally awake now. JoJo's brother pulls him to his feet, admitting he came out because he was worried sick, while the grieving husband, Huang Tao, is just a wreck on the ground, apologizing to his wife. But the brother immediately snaps at him to get up and face the hard truth of the situation, reminding him that he knows damn well Ah Shin was already gone and JoJo saved his life. He even offers to take all the blame, telling the guy to hate him instead if it helps him cope. And that finally gets through, as Huang Tao realizes he still has a duty to save the living. JoJo just watches this, thinking his big brother is still the same masterful people person he always was, which sends him into a flashback of their school days, where his popular brother was his total opposite. But no matter how different they were, his brother was always the one who protected him from everything. Back in the present, JoJo just waves them off, brushing aside his brother's concern as they lead Huang Tao away. JoJo steals himself, determined that this time he'll be the one protecting his brother. But just then, a desperate voice echoes from the cave, pleading for someone to save them, and Xiao Xia immediately recognizes it as the missing village secretary, ready to rush in. JoJo's brother holds her back, warning her not to move an inch, while JoJo himself is on high alert, sensing that something about this whole situation is very wrong. This calls for help die down, replaced by the unsettling sound of sobbing from the darkness. Meanwhile, one of Lin Jae's guys is starting to freak out, asking if zombies are actually real, but Lin Jae, ever the tough guy, immediately tells him to shut up or get lost. Of course, a much bigger goon steps up, calling the other guy a coward and volunteering to go in himself, confidently marching into the cave with his flashlight, only to be met with a low groan from the shadows. This goon's flashlight clatters to the ground, and the groaning from inside abruptly stops, leaving the group outside frozen, realizing their volunteer scout is definitely not coming back. His drop light reveals the absolute nightmare fuel waiting inside, a sea of glowing red eyes, and it's clear the cave is packed wall to wall with the infected, who quickly overwhelmed him. As if to prove the point, one of them drags his body out into the open for everyone to see, leaving the survivors staring in absolute horror at the brutal confirmation of the threat. Even Lin Jae, who was so smug a minute ago, is completely losing his mind now, and his panic is justified because the entire horde starts pouring out of the cave right after. Jojo realizes this is way worse than he remembered, with far too many zombies to handle, so he draws his weapon, telling his brother and Xiao to stick close. It's time to fight. Just as Jojo braces for the fight of his life, his brother suddenly blitzes past him, a blur of pure speed, casually asking, since when Jojo got cool enough to handle a horde all by himself. He clears a path in an instant, but the zombies are already getting back on their feet, which has the brother wondering if these things even have a weak point. Jojo calmly explains their only weaknesses are the brain and sunlight, noting his brother hasn't lost his touch. His brother smirks, glad he won't be a liability, and confirms their strategy with Xiao. She gives a determined nod, ready to follow the plan they discussed, which is simple enough. The brother goes in first, and Jojo's attacks right after. With that, he charges headfirst into the sea of infected, kicking off their desperate battle for survival. With a battle cry, his brother charges straight into the swarm of infected, and Jojo is right on his heels, vaulting over the first zombie to join the fray. He's completely focused, his eyes locked on the threats in front of him, and the two brothers immediately start fighting back to back, clearing a path with brutal efficiency. Just as one of the infected lunges forward with a roar, ready to attack Jojo, his brother intercepts it with a powerful kick, stopping the creature in its tracks. He follows through with a decisive blow, proving he's just as skilled as his little bro, and together they continue to carve their way through the relentless horde. Jojo shouts instructions to the terrified survivors, telling them to aim for the head and not get bitten. Spurred into action, the rest of the group finally joins the fight, desperately trying to hold their ground. Huang Tao watches the brothers fight, completely stunned by how easily they're handling the entire horde, and Lin Jie explains they were trained by a martial arts master, making them professional-level fighters. This hits Huang Tao hard, as he realizes he was a complete fool for trying to attack Jojo earlier, while the brothers themselves are busy finishing off the last of the infected with brutal efficiency. Once the fight is over, they stand among the fallen, finally getting a moment to breathe, and the brother immediately starts teasing Jojo about his new skills, getting a snarky reply back. Jojo then awkwardly tries to comfort a shaken Xiao, telling her everything is fine now, which has his brother internally cringing at how absolutely terrible he is at talking to people. Despite the clumsy attempt, Xiao turns around and sincerely thanks them for saving her life, but the brother gives all the credit to Jojo, who just waves it off to go check on the others. With the immediate threat gone, one of Lin Jae's men reveals he was bitten in the chaos, and another goon quickly admits he was infected too, sending the survivors into a fresh panic, but their boss is nowhere to be found, leaving his bitten men screaming for him in the dark. Turns out Lin Jae ditched his crew and is hiding behind a tree, begging for his life as Jojo approaches, absolutely convinced that he's about to be taken out right then and there, but his eyes are filled with pure terror, not the mindless rage of the infected. Jojo just smirks, realizing the loudmouth managed to get away without a single scratch, so he tells him to keep hiding and not make a sound, holding a weapon to make sure he listens. He then walks off, coldly informing him that Boss Lin doesn't exist out here anymore, leaving the abandoned coward to curse Jojo's name, completely defeated and alone. Meanwhile, Lin Jae is absolutely fuming in the background, swearing he's going to make Jojo pay. But the others are focused on Xiao, who's still insisting she heard the village secretary's voice, and right on cue, another desperate plea for help echoes from the mouth of the cave, which she immediately recognizes, now completely certain about who's trapped inside. Jojo decides to investigate, telling everyone else to head back while he goes in alone, but his brother immediately shuts that down, insisting on going with him as backup. With the plan set, Jojo tells the rest of the survivors to return to the village for their own safety, though they're all clearly reluctant to just abandon the two brothers to the danger. So Jojo lays it out cold, explaining they'd only be a burden against the infected, and that logic finally gets through as the older man agrees to lead the others back. Xiao stays quiet, obviously still torn up about leaving them behind, as the other survivors finally start heading back toward the village. Jojo is determined to find the source of the outbreak before it's too late, also thinking about someone named Sha Bingbing as he prepares to go in. His brother questions if saving the secretary is even possible, since this cave is zombie ground zero, a fact that seems to be brand new information to him, judging by his reaction. Jojo argues the voice they heard didn't sound like it came from someone already infected, and his brother explains the secretary was a mentor, which is why Xiao is so attached. But just as they're about to enter the cave, Jojo suddenly yells for them to stop. because whatever's waiting for them in the darkness is clearly not what they were expecting. At the cave entrance, they find a bizarre, emaciated creature just standing there. And as it collapses, JoJo realizes something is very off about this one, because unlike the others, this thing is already just a dried-up corpse. And he notices a strange, perfectly circular hole bored right through its chest. When his brother spots someone deeper inside, asking if it's the village secretary, and a faint voice echoes from the darkness, weakly pleading for them to save him. So the brother calls out, confirming they're here to help the man. But as the person slowly rises, still begging for rescue, it turns around to reveal a monstrously mutated infected, saying it's hungry, leaving JoJo completely stunned by this new terrifying evolution of the virus. As the mutated infected lashes out, JoJo shoves his brother out of the way, its tendrils smashing into the ground where they were just standing, and his brother realizes this thing is far too fast to outrun, leaving them no choice but to face it head-on. This creature continues its twisted plea for help while its body writhes, so JoJo decides to end it, leaping forward with his blade and driving the weapon straight down into the monster's head, only for the blade to get stuck on its unnaturally tough skin, confirming his worst fear that this is a mutated zombie. Before he can pull back, the creature's tendrils whip around to attack him at point-blank range. JoJo hits the dirt hard, barely dodging the monster's lightning-fast tendrils, and as the creature lets out a horrifying roar, his brother thinks fast, blasting it with his flashlight and realizing the intense light actually hurts it, which gives JoJo just enough time to scream at him to run. His brother is still reeling, asking what kind of zombie this is, as JoJo confirms it's a mutated one, a concept that is clearly brand new and very unwelcome information to him. So JoJo explains that this happens when animal and human DNA mix during infection, creating stronger zombies with special abilities, likely from the mutated bats in this cave. He figures the secretary's form is a bat mutation that's tough in the dark but fears the light, which has his brother wondering since when his slacker little bro became a zombie expert. JoJo has a moment to think about how zombie fiction was surprisingly accurate, as his brother suggests they retreat and come back tomorrow with better weapons to kill the monster. But before they can leave, more infected animals start pouring out of the cave entrance, and soon, a massive swarm of glowing-eyed bats fills the air right in front of them. This entire swarm then converges into one giant, terrifying shadow against the full moon, right as the mutated secretary lands hard, its tendrils digging into the ground. His brothers stare each other down, realizing their plan to leave is officially off the table. With a horrifying screech, the creature lunges forward to attack them again. So the brother hurls his heavy-duty flashlight straight at its head, and it connects with a brutal crunch, shattering completely on impact. That flashlight hit only pisses the creature off, as it swings a massive tendril right at JoJo, forcing him into a desperate dodge as the attack craters the very ground he was standing on. Meanwhile, his brother isn't doing much better, pinned against a tree by one of the regular infected, and he's clearly struggling to keep the thing from taking a bite out of his neck. JoJo sees his brother is in trouble, realizing they're both getting overwhelmed fast. He grits his teeth, knowing this mutated zombie is just too damn strong to fight head-on in the dark, remembering its only weakness is a powerful light source they just don't have, until a car's high beam suddenly blasts through the darkness, illuminating the entire scene. This driver screams at him to dodge, clearly about to ram something, and JoJo is completely floored, recognizing the person behind the wheel as Xia Bingbing. Without a second thought, Xia Bingbing floors it, ramming the car directly into the mutated creature, and the monster gets plastered right across her windshield as she slams into it at full speed, which is a pretty effective, if messy, way to take the thing out of the fight for good. Meanwhile, JoJo has already dealt with the other infected that was attacking his brother, leaving the three of them standing in the aftermath of the sudden, brutal rescue. A shaken Xia Bingbing gets out of the car, asking if the brothers are okay after that chaos, while Xiao points at the remains, horrified to realize it was the village secretary. But JoJo coldly explains the man was long dead, and this was just some monster in his body. His brother is just relieved they survived, admitting they were done for if Xiao hadn't come back, then immediately starts teasing JoJo for not thanking her, questioning his future dating prospects. Just as the tension breaks, JoJo is horrified to see his brother call out to him, who then grimly admits that he was careless and got bitten during the chaos. He asks JoJo to take care of his family, having already accepted his fate, and implies that his little brother knows exactly what needs to be done now. This completely shatters JoJo, who realizes he failed to prevent the very tragedy he was reborn to stop. But as he grits his teeth in despair, a sudden dark realization hits him. Looking at the creature's remains, he understands it wasn't a normal zombie, it was a mutant. With his eyes glowing red with absolute fury and determination, he starts relentlessly stabbing the monster's corpse on the hood of the car, leaving his brother and Xiao completely shocked and screaming for him to stop. As he carves into the dead mutant, JoJo explains that these things absorb lesser zombies, all in an effort to create a powerful zombie core inside their heads. He then pulls out a glowing purple orb, telling his brother there's still a chance since he hasn't turned yet, explaining that this core is the source of the virus, and consuming it could grant him immunity and abilities. His brother stares at the orb, weighing the chance it'll just turn him into a monster like the one they just fought. This new information comes as a complete shock, leaving his brother speechless for a moment, who then just sighs, complaining he wasted his emotions before asking how long the process takes. Jojo gives him a grimly straight answer: 2 days. With his decision made, the brother heads into the cave, telling Jojo to seal it if he doesn't come back human. This brother tries to lighten the mood with a thumbs up, telling Jojo not to envy his potential new powers, which earns him a completely deadpan stare, because nobody is finding this funny. But Jojo manages a small smile, promising they'll be right here waiting for him. As his brother walks into the darkness, Jojo and Xiaoxia stand a grim vigil by the car, completely unaware that they're being watched from the woods by none other than Lin Jae, who puts the pieces together and ominously decides it's the perfect time to help them out. This scene then cuts to the village as the sun rises on a new day, and after a long night, Jojo finally wakes up back at their makeshift base. One of the other survivors is just relieved to see him conscious again, right before all hell breaks loose and Xiaoxia gets sent flying across the yard. This morning after brings a whole new kind of chaos as Jojo's dad excitedly asks for some of his treasures, forcing Jojo to explain that the man is holding a barrel of gunpowder, not a new toy, but his dad just calls him stingy and runs off with one of the barrels anyway, leaving Jojo to just watch his father make another spectacularly bad decision. Elsewhere in the yard, Xiaoxia is getting a stern talking to from her mother after being thrown earlier, and Jojo, completely used to this, just asks his own mom if there's any breakfast, who promptly tells him to make it himself since she's a little busy at the moment. With no food at home, he decides to head over to a neighbor's house to see what they have, and after a moment's hesitation, he walks up to the door to knock, only for it to swing open, revealing a very surprised Xia Bingbing on the other side. Xia Bingbing explains she's worried the signal blackout will cut them off from any rescue attempts, so she asks Jojo to escort her to the county city to try and make contact with the outside world. He's clearly hesitant, especially after what just happened to his brother, and she immediately apologizes, knowing it's a terrible time to ask him to face more danger. But she insists he's the strongest person in the village and knows the most about the infected, before Jojo's mom cuts her off, saying they owe her for saving him the night before. With that, Jojo finally agrees to the plan, understanding the necessity of it. His mom then hands him back his sword, telling him to be more careful with it this time, and sends them on their way with a firm order to come back alive, no matter what. This two of them head out, promising to return soon as they begin their trip to the city. Turns out Lin Jae is still watching from the shadows, creepily noting how good the two look together. While back in the cave, Jojo's brother is already coughing and struggling with the transformation, his eyes glowing red as he hears a noise and assumes his brother has come back for him. So he immediately warns them to stay away, knowing how dangerous this process is. But then he notices a strange puddle of liquid spreading across the cave floor, and after a quick sniff, he realizes with absolute horror that it's gasoline. Before he can react, the entire cave entrance erupts in a massive explosion. While miles away, Jojo and Xia Bingbing are driving down the highway, completely oblivious, with Xia Bingbing even trying to lighten the mood by singing a cheerful road trip song, as Jojo just keeps his eyes on the road, unaware his brother's only hope was just sabotaged. Jojo listens to her terrible singing, confirming that tone deafness is indeed a real affliction, while she awkwardly admits it's just a nervous habit and she knows she's bad at it. He thinks about how she's scared but still rushes into danger, a trait he remembers well, and he gets a flash of the hardened survivor she's destined to become in the future, reminding him that he desperately needs her zombie-sensing ability to navigate this new world. With his mind made up, he decides she absolutely cannot die and suddenly calls out her name, which catches her completely off guard in the middle of the drive. He then very seriously tells her that she should come live at his house from now on, leaving Xia Bingbing completely flustered by the incredibly forward invitation. She's blushing hard, asking why on earth he would want her to move in with him. He decides against telling her the whole past life story and just gets straight to the point, bluntly explaining that he needs her to stay with him so he can protect her from dying. This, of course, comes across as a full-blown confession, leaving her completely red-faced. But their awkward moment is cut short when Jojo slams on the brakes, as Xia Bingbing points ahead in total shock at what's blocking their path. Turns out the entire mountain road has been completely wiped out by a massive landslide. With the path to the city gone, they're officially cut off from the outside world, and Jojo realizes this is another major change from his original timeline, one that's going to make survival a lot harder. Seeing no further choice, Xia Bingbing suggests they head back to the village to regroup, so they turn the car around and begin the long drive back, their mission a total failure. On the drive back, Jojo gets a bad feeling, realizing the blocked road and lack of signal are a terrible combination, as his instincts scream that something is deeply wrong with this whole situation, and he's proven right when he's forced to slam on the brakes for something up ahead. This truck screeches to a violent halt on the empty mountain road, leaving massive skid marks as they narrowly avoid whatever's blocking their path. Getting out, they find a crude but effective barricade of spikes laid across the asphalt, and Xia Bingbing is stunned, pointing out the very deliberate and dangerous trap. She tries to stop Jojo from getting any closer, identifying the spikes as tire studs, but he already understands this wasn't an accident. Someone else is out here and they set this up. Xia Bingbing is just amazed by his composure, calling his name with a new level of respect. Just then, a voice cuts in, and it's none other than Lin Jae holding a gun, who mockingly says he's jealous Jojo got with the beautiful official so fast. Jojo immediately asks what the hell he thinks he's doing out here, and Lin Jae explains he's here for revenge after Jojo took out his men yesterday. Our boy just scoffs, telling him if he wants revenge, he should go fight the actual zombies, then calls him a coward, doubting he even has the nerve to pull the trigger. This completely sets Lin Jae off, who starts screaming Jojo's name in fury, raising his gun and vowing to end him, right here and now for what he did. But Jojo is completely unimpressed, just smirking and daring him to give it a shot, leaving the three of them in a tense standoff in the middle of the empty road. Without a moment's hesitation, Lin Jae pulls the trigger, this gunshot tearing through the silence of the mountain road. But the bullet doesn't hit Jojo, it hits Xia Bingbing in the leg. This sends Jojo into an absolute fury, screaming the man's name, while Lin Jae just laughs, clearly enjoying the chaos he's caused. He gloats that to deal with someone like Jojo, he had to target the people around him first, then casually adds that he forgot to mention one other thing he did. Turns out he was watching yesterday and saw Jojo's brother get infected, and knowing our boy couldn't do what was necessary, he helped by bombing the cave himself. With that final, devastating confession, Jojo completely snaps and charges forward to end him. Xia Bingbing screams for Jojo to stop, realizing he's running straight into a trap, but Lin Jae just smirks, gloating that he was waiting for this exact moment, right as a massive, shadowy beast with glowing red eyes emerges from the woods behind him. Before anyone can react, Jojo's sword flies through the air, like a red streak, completely bypassing Lin Jae, who can only watch in total confusion, as the enraged beast immediately turns and ends the man's gloating for good. Jojo is left in shock, recognizing the creature as a high-level rank 2 zombie wolf. This scene then cuts back to the village where things are deceptively calm for now, with Xiao Xia on the balcony, getting worried that her brother and Xia Bingbing still haven't returned. Just then, a loud knock echoes from their front door as an unfamiliar voice asks if Jojo is home. Back at the village, Xiao Xia is on the balcony when two neighbors call out for Jojo, and she's immediately confused, telling them her brother already left with Shen on the asphalt after his little plan backfired spectacularly. He can't believe this is how it ends, realizing the beast he summoned is about to finish him, and with his last breath, he curses Jojo, convinced he won't survive this encounter either. But Jojo just stares down the massive zombie wolf, ready for the real fight to begin. Without hesitation, Jojo faces the enraged zombie wolf, knowing this is a fight for his life, and he narrowly dodges its massive claws, moving with a speed that surprises even himself before striking back with a vicious slash of his own sword, landing a deep wound but getting thrown back by the sheer force of the beast. He realizes they're lucky it's still dusk, since the wolf isn't at full strength yet, which means he absolutely has to finish this fight before the sun goes down completely. But just as he's about to re-engage, a distant sound from the woods stops him cold, and he immediately recognizes the unmistakable sound of screaming zombies. Except it's not just a few, it's an entire goddamn zombie wave pouring out of the forest. This makes no sense to him, since he thought the source of the waves was already dead. He finally identifies the source of the horde, a massive, mutated bat-like creature, which towers over him with glowing red eyes, clearly the alpha of this entire wave, and it immediately attacks, sending Jojo flying back with a single devastating swipe, leaving him reeling from the sheer force of the blow, barely able to recover. But as he looks up, he notices the wound he managed to inflict on the beast, and realizes with absolute horror that the damn thing is already regenerating the damage, giving him no time to react before it lunges forward to finish him off for good. Meanwhile, back at the cave, the entrance is still completely sealed by the rock slide until the entire pile of boulders begins to shake violently from something within, as the rocks suddenly explode outwards, unleashing whatever was trapped inside. From the rubble of the cave, Jojo's brother emerges, fully transformed and looking dangerously confident, while back on the road, Xia Bingbing can only scream in absolute denial, as the massive zombie wolf lunges to finish Jojo off for good. Its jaws clamp down in a brutal attack, seemingly ending the fight right there. But a strange red energy suddenly flares to life, shielding him from the fatal blow. He recognizes this feeling, a familiar power awakening deep inside him, which erupts outwards in a massive, uncontrolled blast of pure force, sending the zombie wolf flying backwards from the sheer impact of the shockwave. This beast gets absolutely launched, taking a direct hit from his sudden power-up, and Jojo lands on his feet, now dual-wielding and glowing with a whole new level of strength. With a single devastating swing, his new power absolutely tears through the zombie wolf, leaving Xia Bingbing to just stare in shock as the beast is completely overwhelmed, and she can only call out his name, unsure of what she's even witnessing, as the monster is completely taken apart by the sheer force of his attack, leaving Jojo standing alone in the aftermath, glowing with this newfound red energy. He turns back to her with those glowing red eyes and a smirk, calmly saying, "I'm here," and Xia Bingbing is just flooded with relief, glad that he's somehow okay, admitting to herself that she's not even surprised by his insane power anymore. Meanwhile, Jojo realizes his strength has skyrocketed, but this isn't how awakenings worked in his past life, so he cuts the reunion short and tells her to get ready to run, leaving her totally confused. He tells her to run, but she's quick to point out they're completely surrounded by zombies, as the horde is already pouring out of the woods, drawn by the sound of the fight. Seeing her injured leg, Jojo just tells her to hold on tight because he's carrying her, warning her with those glowing red eyes that this is going to be a bumpy ride. She just agrees, bracing herself for whatever the hell he's about to do next, and with that, he launches them forward at an absolutely insane speed, leaving the entire zombie horde in the dust as they try to give chase. Xia Bingbing can only hold on for dear life, tightening her grip on him as he moves like a blur through the trees, carrying her effortlessly through the chaos. He finally lands hard, dropping one of his swords as he prepares for the next move. Carrying Xia Bingbing, Jojo makes a desperate leap through the night sky towards safety, and he lands with a clear view of the village, their destination finally in sight. But touching down on the road, he sees the entire horde is still right on their tail. He knows fighting them all is impossible without getting Xia Bingbing hurt in the crossfire. Right as a car suddenly barrels down the road, followed by a massive fiery explosion. This blast rips through the front lines of the horde, clearing a path in an instant as the vehicle plows right through the chaos, completely unfazed by the surrounding undead. Turns out backup has arrived in the form of some tough-looking guy and a young girl who immediately orders his gunner to unleash some special ammo on the remaining zombies. And on cue, a hand starts tossing out Molotov cocktails, ready to light up the whole road. This girl in the passenger seat is having the time of her life, tossing firebombs into the horde, which immediately engulfs the zombies in a roaring inferno as they charge the car, while the driver just smirks, getting ready to throw something a little more explosive, launching a massive spiked bomb right into the thick of the approaching undead, and then casually flicks his cigarette out the window to act as the trigger, which sets off a huge blast that clears their path in an instant. Inside, the pigtail girl is absolutely thrilled by the chaos, unlike her too much calmer companions, as the guy in the back suddenly remembers there's a first aid kit under the seat, so he starts searching for bandages and supplies to treat Xia Bingbing's leg, but the gunner girl snatches them away, teasing him about his special relationship with her. While the pigtail girl is still enjoying the show, the guy in the back is less than impressed, and he asks his dad for an update on the village while getting a bit too familiar with Xia Bingbing, who gets a quick assurance from the driver that the zombies haven't actually breached the walls yet. So the son pivots to asking if his dad really made all that dynamite they just used, and the old man proudly admits he was an explosives expert back in his mining days, which immediately makes his son ask if he was also behind the kitchen explosion last year. This dad nervously denies it, begging him not to tell his mother about any of this, right as they finally pull up to the house, with Jojo helping Xia Bingbing out of the car. But just as they're about to get inside to safety, the dad suddenly starts panicking, because the door is locked, and in all the chaos, he completely forgot to bring his keys. With the keys forgotten, Jojo just blasts the door open himself, shocking the hell out of the dad, only to find a woman inside who's already got the situation handled, casually holding a zombie by the throat, and she doesn't seem fazed at all, actually recognizing the creature she's currently choking out, identifying it as their old neighbor Mrs. Zhang, who's clearly not having a great apocalypse. This son from the car just stares, asking if that absolute unit is really his mom, who, frying pan in hand, complains that the zombie just popped out and startled her before she starts laying into the undead neighbor about old gambling debts and family drama. Her son is completely stunned by this display, asking his dad when she became so strong, and the dad casually explains that his wife was a gangster back in the day who could take on multiple guys, before admitting with a sigh that she actually forced him into marrying her in the first place. This dad gets a frying pan to the head as his wife sets the record straight about who begged who to marry, before she turns on Jojo, promising to deal with him later for breaking down her door. But Xia Bingbing quickly steps in, explaining he only did it because he was worried about her, which immediately softens the mom's demeanor, who's just happy to see her back safe. This dad quickly tries to laugh the whole thing off, insisting his wife is actually very kind. With that settled, the mom finally deals with the undead neighbor she'd been holding this whole time, finishing the creature off without a second thought before turning to the real problem. Their reunion is cut short by a lookout screaming that more zombies are pouring into the village from the west, leaving Jojo to take in the news, his expression turning deadly serious. His eyes flare with that same red energy, his mind focused on a single brutal command: kill. Jojo recalls his last life, where the horde's sudden arrival caught everyone completely off guard. But this time is different, as his family is more than prepared to fight back hard, and he's no longer alone, drawing strength from having them all fighting together. He's absolutely certain they'll survive this wave, determined to see it through. As they hold the line, the zombies in the front ranks suddenly begin to falter, because up on the roof, Jojo is watching over the battlefield with the others. A lead zombie roars, trying to push the horde forward into the village, but Jojo just focuses his power, his glowing red eye locking onto the crowd, which is enough to make the entire wave of undead recoil in absolute fear. Xia Bingbing stares in disbelief, realizing the zombies are actually retreating from him. But Jojo knows something is wrong, because zombies aren't supposed to feel fear, and instead of scattering, the horde is just regrouping with weapons and ladders in hand, leaving the dad completely stunned that they're smart enough to plan an actual siege. Jojo knows better, though. These zombies aren't thinking, they're being controlled, so he immediately scans the rooftops, trying to pinpoint the source of the command. And sure enough, a lone silhouette stands on a distant building, overseeing the entire attack, revealing the one in charge is none other than his brother Lin Jai. Now half-mutated, Lin Jai glares down with a monstrous grin, clearly the new alpha, and with a single command, a massive explosion rips through the village defenses, letting the once hesitant zombies pour through the breach, ready to overwhelm them all. This dad realizes the entire horde is ignoring the rest of the village to attack them directly, so he calls for more dynamite, but the gunner girl tells him they're completely out of explosives. Xiaobingbing screams Jojo's name, trying to warn him about the escalating threat, because the zombies have started using ladders to scale the walls and get onto the roof. Just as the first one makes it over the edge, Jojo is already there waiting for it, and he's piecing it together, realizing these aren't mindless monsters. They're using actual strategy. Down below, the rest of the family is forced to defend the courtyard against the ones that got through, with Xiaobingbing, despite her injury, holding her own with a makeshift weapon. This dad joins the fray, smashing zombies with whatever he can get hands on, while his absolute unit of a wife gets to work with a shovel, looking completely unfazed. With a grim look, Jojo prepares to make his move, telling his parents to stay back and just defend the courtyard, as he steps onto the wall to face the entire horde completely alone. His dad can only scream his name, absolutely terrified for his son, but Jojo just smirks as that red energy begins to flare up around him, and just as a zombie lunges, its attack is completely blocked by an invisible barrier, which instantly disintegrates the creature's arm on contact. This overwhelming power, an ability called Buddhist blood, erupts from his body, and he realizes he's seen this before, used by a top commander in his past life, but he pushes that aside, deciding that as long as he can protect his family, nothing else matters. Jojo knows the horde is just a distraction, with the real problem being the one controlling them, so he decides to cut the head off the snake, knowing he has to take out the leader first. Without a second thought, he leaps from the roof right into the middle of the undead below, scoffing at his brother, wondering if he really thought these basic zombies could stop him. And with a grim look, he prepares to cut his way through the entire crowd, unleashing a massive wave of energy that clears the immediate area around him instantly. Meanwhile, back in the courtyard, another zombie lunges right for Xiaobingbing, but she manages to fend it off with a makeshift spear, holding her ground despite her injury. This mom immediately rushes to her side, frantically asking if she's been hurt in the chaos, but Xiaobingbing just brushes it off, her only concern being where the hell Jojo went. This gunner girl suddenly pipes up, completely confident she knows what's going on, saying she saw Jojo fighting like a superhero and has total faith in him. So she tells everyone not to worry, because he's definitely going to be fine. But that confidence shatters the moment she actually looks over the wall, spotting Linjai and calling out to him, confused by his monstrous appearance, right as he screams at them all to run, clearly not in control of himself, because a massive mutated bear-like creature with glowing red eyes looms up behind him. This monster brings its colossal paw down in an instant, crushing Linjai without a second thought, leaving the girl completely frozen in horror at what she just witnessed. This triggers a memory for Jojo of his family's fate, stealing his resolve to prevent that tragedy from repeating. Jojo's eyes flare red as he taps into a deeper level of his power, unleashing a torrent of raw energy that erupts from his body, while his family can only watch in horror, screaming his name from the courtyard. This massive bear monster's eyes glow with that same ominous red light, and as it brings its claws down, Jojo meets the attack head-on, stopping it cold. This sheer force of their collision tearing up the entire street in an instant. But just then, another person appears, calmly observing the fight with a smirk, noting that Jojo can also wield the same kind of power he possesses. He casually apologizes for arriving late, standing right in front of the giant beast, and Jojo looks over in shock, recognizing him as his big brother. This big brother explains he's been getting familiar with this power in a cave somewhere, telling Jojo to watch closely as he demonstrates how it's really supposed to be used. And he unleashes a massive blast of red energy right into the giant bear monster, which tears through the street in a devastating attack that rips everything apart. He's a little surprised the creature is still standing, calling it a surprisingly tough hamster, before telling Jojo to leave this fight to him and go handle his own business. Jojo just smirks and agrees, his eyes glowing with that same ominous energy, as he remembers the endless nightmares from his past life and his hatred for his own weakness. Now that he has power, he spots Linjai still standing, shocked he survived getting crushed, while the mutated Linjai declares his old self is gone, ready to face his brother. Linjai gloats that he's finally shed his weak human body for something far superior, declaring himself the new Apocalypse King, a perfect hybrid who can control the undead. He even sarcastically thanks Jojo for killing a zombie wolf, which let him eat its crystal to power up, and as a token of his gratitude, he's decided on the perfect way to repay him, which is, of course, to kill him right where he stands. But before he can finish the thought, Jojo's energy just rips right through him. Jojo cuts the monologue short, telling him to shut up because he's just too damn noisy, scoffing at the idea of a weakling like Linjai ever becoming a king as he stands over the remains. With that distraction handled, he figures the pressure on his big brother's fight should be a lot lighter now, but elsewhere, another sinister figure watches on, seemingly controlling a zombie of his own. But even after being torn apart, Linjai is somehow still talking to Jojo, taunting him that his attack wasn't nearly enough to finish the job because he just regenerates on the spot, declaring himself completely unkillable. Joe realizes his brother inherited the zombie wolf's insane regeneration ability, and Linjai tries to recruit him, saying they're the same and should rule this new world together. He reveals this entire horde was a gift to help Jojo clear out the weaker undead, which is cold comfort for the villagers who are still trying to hold the line against them. Down at the barricade, the defenders are screaming that they're about to be overrun, but another man tells them to hold on, trusting JoJo and his big brother to end this soon. Unfortunately, their faith isn't stopping the wall from buckling under the sheer weight of the horde. Big Brother slams the giant bear monster down, using its body to plug the breach in their defenses, and he seems a little surprised, admitting the creature was tougher than he expected. But now it's a perfect, if temporary, solution to keep the horde from pouring in. Meanwhile, JoJo's dad calls out to him, desperately asking how his son is doing, but Big Brother just stays silent for a moment, his expression grim, as the dad realizes he can't leave his post with so many zombies still swarming the walls. He finally tells him not to worry, saying JoJo has far more potential than he does, and that he's absolutely confident the kid can handle whatever he's facing. Unfortunately, JoJo is coughing and struggling as another monstrous creature looks down on him with contempt, and this new enemy calls him a disappointment, looming over him as he tries to recover. This mutated Linjay looms over him, calling him weak for clinging to his humanity, and offers to forgive JoJo if he just submits to his new power, clarifying that the forgiveness is just for daring to swing a sword at him in the first place, as he unleashes a devastating energy slash that carves a trench in the ground. But JoJo isn't having any of it, stating that humans don't team up with monsters, especially not one that threatened his family, so the only option is to kill Linjay. Linjay just scoffs at the threat, his wounds instantly regenerating as he prepares his own judgment, declaring that JoJo has just earned himself a death sentence. This two of them immediately clash again in a massive explosion of power, but JoJo is stunned to find his brother's speed has somehow gotten even faster. JoJo realizes he's not just dealing with incredible speed, but an overwhelming amount of raw power behind his brother's attack, and he gets slammed with a brutal hit that sends him flying, carving a massive trench through the street from the sheer force of the blow. He barely manages to skid to a halt, his energy flaring defensively, completely shocked that his protective aura couldn't even block the strike. Linjay just taunts him, sarcastically impressed that JoJo survived an attack he thought would be fatal, while JoJo knows his stamina is fading fast, and this next clash has to be the last one. But his brother just smirks, casually admitting that he lied about that last attack, because he doesn't even know his own full strength, right as a dark energy slash tears through JoJo's back. Realizing he's on his last legs, JoJo pulls out a grenade, tossing it right at his brother's face as a last-ditch effort. This whole street erupts in a massive explosion, but Linjay just scoffs, asking if he really thought that would be enough to kill him. He looks through the smoke, expecting to find a body, only to realize JoJo used the blast as a distraction to get away. This thought that his brother actually ran is almost insulting to him, and he just starts laughing maniacally at the perceived cowardice. He vows that there's no escape, promising to hunt JoJo down and make him suffer. But for now, JoJo is hiding out in a convenience store, badly wounded and trying to catch his breath. He's managed to stop the bleeding, using his power to crudely patch up his wounds, but that little trick has left him almost completely drained of energy with only one shot left. His eyes land on a nearby petrol station, which seems to be the key to his last-ditch plan. But of course, Linjay is already there, taunting him for picking such an obvious place to die. His brother launches into a whole monologue about being a wolf that hunts purely for the thrill, explaining that he loves watching his prey struggle desperately before they finally break. And to demonstrate his point, he casually hurls a car right at JoJo. This guy is clearly enjoying himself, calling the whole twisted game fun with a monstrous grin. But after the car crashes down, Linjay realizes his brother isn't actually there anymore, leaving him to scan the area, wondering where the hell JoJo could have possibly gone. Turns out JoJo was setting up a pretty clever trap with fuel and a tripwire, but Linjay just scoffs, thinking he's too smart to follow a simple blood trail into the store, instead using his senses to pinpoint where the smell of blood is actually the strongest, and he unleashes a massive slash at what he thinks is JoJo's real hiding spot. He's completely shocked to find he just sliced through a decoy, leaving him looking down in total confusion at the trick, because it was just a jacket propped up to fool him, right as JoJo appears from behind. With his brother's guard down, JoJo lands a clean, brutal strike across his face, which actually makes Linjay scream out in genuine pain from the attack. JoJo reveals the secret ingredient was salt, mocking his brother for having senses so messed up he couldn't even tell. JoJo explains that with the wolf's power came a pretty glaring weakness, pointing out that a wolf's sense of smell is incredibly powerful, which also makes it extremely vulnerable to irritants like salt. And with his brother writhing in agony, JoJo mocks his so-called king status, sending Linjay into a blind rage as he vows to kill him right there. But JoJo just recalls his big brother's technique, gathering all his energy into one hand, as his brother unleashes a desperate energy slash of his own, channeling every last drop of power into his knife until it erupts in a massive pillar of light. With a final shout, he prepares to unleash everything he has left in a single decisive blow, unleashing a devastating beam of pure energy right back at his brother. When the smoke from their final clash finally clears, JoJo is the one left standing, and he's genuinely shocked that his all-out attack didn't actually finish his brother off, sarcastically complimenting Linjay's insane vitality as he looks down into the crater, where his brother is still trying to gloat about being a king even while he's a complete wreck, insisting he's unkillable, right as some strange yellow fluid starts leaking out of his body, which makes him start coughing uncontrollably, totally confused about what's happening to him. And JoJo explains that the Molotov cocktail was just a taste of his real plan, asking if an entire petrol station's worth of fuel is enough to finally send him to hell, before revealing one last surprise he calls the coffin he prepared just for this occasion. But at that exact moment, the sinister man from before seems to be watching everything unfold. With his own battle finally over, Jojo calls out to his dad, his energy still flaring from the fight, but his father's attention is caught by something else entirely on the horizon. Because after a long, brutal night, the sun is finally starting to rise, and he can hardly believe his eyes, realizing it's actually daylight. Down on the wall, another defender shouts for everyone to look, as the zombies caught in the light immediately begin to recoil, and soon the entire horde is in a full-blown retreat from the village. Big Brother and the dad watch them go, a wave of relief washing over them, a feeling shared by all the exhausted villagers who held the line all night, realizing that against all odds, they actually managed to defend their home. With the sun finally up, Big Brother lands back on the quiet streets after the long fight, and he's just taking a moment to breathe when he hears a familiar voice calling out, someone desperately shouting Jojo's name for help nearby. He spots a woman he recognizes, looking absolutely exhausted and terrified. Jojo immediately identifies her as Lee Chin, another survivor from their group. This scene then flashes back to his sister, accusing Big Brother of being a total creep, but he explains he was just checking Lee Chin for bite marks, since bringing in survivors is risky. His excuse that he was also shirtless at the time does not exactly help his case, and his sister is just relieved. She stopped him before Sister Bing Bing saw the whole thing. Big Brother just seems confused, wondering why it would even matter if she saw him. His sister tries to explain that Sister Bing Bing is basically the village goddess, and seeing him shirtless with another woman would create a massive misunderstanding. But Big Brother is just completely dense, asking what she even means by that, which makes his sister give up entirely, calling him a lost cause as she walks off. Back in the present, Lee Chin is on the ground looking absolutely terrified, and Big Brother immediately asks her what happened to the rest of her group. She can barely speak, just pointing in terror and saying the word monster, explaining that a giant creature appeared out of nowhere and wiped out everyone else. Big Brother's expression turns grim as he looks in the direction she's pointing, telling her to stay put while he goes to check out this new deadly problem alone. Lee Chin just blushes and agrees to whatever Big Brother said, looking completely smitten by him, while he hops in a truck, smugly telling Jojo that he's finally grown up a bit. And Jojo quietly agrees that this time, the ending is different, which just confuses his brother, who shakes it off and tells him it's time to go deal with the mountain of zombie corpses. Soon enough, they're out in a clearing, watching the last batch go up in a massive bonfire, and Jojo explains they have to burn everything to stop animals from eating the remains and mutating, which is a problem for another day, because Big Brother is exhausted and just wants to sleep, but not before telling Jojo to take their truck to the petrol station and wash it clean, which makes Jojo question he's the one stuck with the chore. So his brother just pulls the "I'm older" card with a smirk, daring him to complain. This sinister man appears at the bonfire, asking Big Brother if they're settling this the usual way, but Big Brother just scoffs, suggesting a simple game of catching to decide the winner, so the man agrees to be the catcher, laying out the simple rules for their contest, and with Big Brother designated as the runner, the deadly game is officially on, as the catcher begins his 10-second countdown, giving his prey a head start. This moment he hits 9, Big Brother's eyes flare red and he explodes into motion, though his opponent just calmly continues counting down to 8, completely unfazed, even smugly mentioning that he's going to use a special move for this hunt, his confident grin making it clear he thinks this is already over. While Big Brother tears through the forest, putting everything he has into pure speed. As he runs, Big Brother taunts his opponent, asking if he forgot something crucial, but the sinister man appears right behind him, revealing he knows the exact same move. Suddenly, it's not a chase anymore, but a dead sprint with both of them evenly matched, tearing through the forest side by side at an absolutely blinding speed, leaving nothing but a blur of red energy zipping between the trees. This catcher finally makes a move, launching an aerial attack to try and pin Big Brother down, landing perfectly as his opponent is forced to dodge out of the way. Big Brother keeps his momentum, using the terrain to leap between trees and maintain his lead, which only seems to amuse the catcher, who's clearly getting a kick out of this hunt. Despite the pressure, Big Brother just keeps running, determined to outlast his pursuer. Big Brother keeps up the pace, using a massive fallen log as his personal highway, but he's suddenly thrown off balance when the log beneath him just shatters, sending him plummeting towards the forest floor as the whole thing gets sliced apart. While the catcher lands perfectly on the other side, his red aura flaring with power, and the guy looks completely unfazed, clearly enjoying this little game of cat and mouse. Big Brother manages to land on his feet, already looking for his next move, only to find a massive log rolling right at him at full speed. But instead of dodging, he plants his hand on it, trying to stop its momentum cold, because it turns out the catcher is on top, pushing down with all his might, and he just smirks, taunting Big Brother for even thinking he could run away. Big Brother realizes he's too strong to win against in a straight fight, so instead of dodging the log, he decides to meet the attack head-on, channeling all of his energy into his arms to stop the massive projectile, and then completely shatters it into 1,000 pieces with a huge burst of power. This catcher is left standing alone in the aftermath of the explosion, and for a second he actually wonders if he might have gone a little overboard, scanning the debris field for any sign of his opponent. But Big Brother has completely vanished from the area, leaving him confused. Suddenly, a voice from above announces that the 3 minutes are up, revealing Big Brother perched on a cliff, declaring that the runner wins this round. This catcher is stunned Big Brother made it up the cliff, but he just says he's figured out both their powers, which leads the guy to turn to JoJo, asking if he also ate one of those power-up crystals, and JoJo confirms it, realizing his new ability is something he calls Borrow Strength, Fime, a name that just confuses the catcher, who asks if that means JoJo can just copy his powers, so JoJo explains that's basically the gist of it, before naming the catcher's ability Blood Buddhist, a power that boosts stats and blocks damage, though he can only copy it at 70% strength. But the real kicker is that JoJo can also see the exact numerical stats of his opponent's abilities, clarifying it's not a game system but a natural feeling he can quantify for him right now, rating his strength and agility at a 90 and his physique at 95 compared to a normal person's 20. But when it comes to intelligence, he gives him a solid 0, which nearly starts another fight. Big Brother casually mentions he left the zombie bear crystal in JoJo's room as a backup, then offers to help wash the truck since he can't let a dumb person go alone, earning a sharp reply. But while he's asleep, their sister sneaks into his room and finds that very same crystal in his drawer, deciding with a greedy grin that it's her turn to get a superpower from the glowing rock. Sometime later, things seem to have settled down around the village for a bit, and JoJo is stuck with the lovely chore of tilling the family garden by hand, complaining that his mom is showing favoritism by making him work while his brother is free. Fed up with the manual labor, his eyes flare red as he decides to activate his cheat ability, channeling his power into the hoe, which immediately starts tearing through the dirt at incredible speed, and from a nearby rooftop, his sister seems to be watching the whole thing unfold. Meanwhile, Lee Chin seems to have completely recovered from her earlier terror, and she's leaning against a wall, looking for someone specific, apparently deciding that now is the perfect time to make her move, as she spots JoJo from a rooftop and calls out his name, telling him she's finally found him after searching for a while he's stuck down below cleaning the absolute mess left on the walls, and he looks up, completely surprised to see Lee Chin there, immediately asking if she's feeling alright after everything that happened. But she just smiles, saying she's much better now and thanking him for saving her, though JoJo just brushes it off, saying he was only keeping a promise. Lee Chin tries to play on his sympathy, reminding him that he saved her life, then asks if he'll keep helping her in the future, clearly expecting him to agree. JoJo just stares back at her, completely unmoved by the whole performance, and without a moment's hesitation he flatly tells her nope. She's completely stunned by the blunt rejection, unable to even form a response. As JoJo explains, he only helped because of a promise to her uncle, which is now fulfilled. He makes it crystal clear he has no duty or responsibility to her from this point on, leaving Lee Chin looking absolutely crushed by his cold and final dismissal. She seems to quietly accept his decision, her expression completely falling, finally just whispering that she understands as the conversation comes to an end. After finally getting the walls clean, JoJo takes a moment to himself, musing on his Blood Buddhist power and how he needs to train his control over it. But his quiet moment is shattered when someone starts banging on the gate calling his name, and he opens it to find a group of solemn-looking villagers waiting outside. A little while later, they're all gathered inside his house to talk things over, where JoJo listens as they explain the grim results of their search, confirming they're the only survivors left in the entire village after the attack. This young woman apologizes, feeling like they've somehow failed in their duties, but JoJo immediately shuts that down, reminding them that zombie hordes are nearly impossible to stop. He tells them they did more than enough, which seems to hit the exhausted survivors hard. One of the villagers asks what they're supposed to do now, looking completely defeated, but JoJo just calmly tells him the answer is actually very simple, which gets the man's full attention as he'd for some grand survival plan. Instead, JoJo just invites them to shower, rest, and have dinner with his family, reminding them that the most important thing is that they're all still alive. Later, one of the survivors, a woman named Bing Bing, feels a bit awkward in borrowed clothes, but she's quickly called to the table by JoJo's mom, announcing that dinner is ready. She quickly agrees, deciding her slightly too small shirt really doesn't matter right now, and as night falls, the small group of survivors gathers inside the house, where for a moment, it almost feels like a normal family dinner as his sister serves the food. JoJo's mom immediately starts playing matchmaker, telling Bing Bing to sit right next to him, and though she's a little flustered by the sudden attention, she agrees to take the seat, while another one of the survivors just watches the whole interaction with a quiet intensity. A moment later, Bing Bing is settled in beside JoJo, and things seem surprisingly comfortable. One of the other survivors then gets everyone's attention, ready to give a toast, reminding them all of the grim reality that they might be the last people left from their village. But he quickly pivots, saying what truly matters is that they all made it through alive, declaring that from now on, they're all one family who will work together to rebuild. With a renewed sense of hope, the entire group raises their drinks for a heartfelt toast. But the moment is shattered when someone suddenly drops their can, clearly in distress. This person in distress is JoJo's sister, Xiao Ying, who suddenly screams out in pain and she collapses to the floor, knocking over her chair as everyone panics, only to rise again with her eyes glowing a terrifying red, growling like a wild animal. JoJo's own eyes flare in response, instantly recognizing the signs of an unstable power awakening, as the energy from that zombie bear crystal completely overwhelms his sister's body. And with a feral snarl, she loses all control and lunges directly at him. He's forced to activate his own Blood Buddhist power just to block her frenzied attack, holding her back as he feels the raw, untamed strength she's now wielding. But Xiaoying is completely lost to a blind rage, pushing against his grip relentlessly, leaving JoJo to struggle with restraining her as the others look on in horror. Big Brother calmly tells everyone to back off, insisting he's got the situation with his sister under control, while their mother is just frozen in place, completely horrified by what's happening to her daughter. Xiaoying's eyes are still glowing with that unstable, raw power from the crystal, so JoJo activates his own ability, trying to snap her out of the berserker rage. This shock seems to work, as Xiaoying finally comes back to her senses, looking totally confused, and later, Big Brother is all smiles while the survivors are still clearly worried about her condition. She's not looking so hot though, sweating and obviously uncomfortable as everyone stares at her, apparently just overwhelmed by the dinner party and begging her brother for an escape. But her condition suddenly worsens, and she looks like she's about to be sick right at the table. So JoJo explains the drink was the issue, hoisting her over his shoulder and telling everyone to just keep eating. With the dinner party officially ruined, the survivors just stand around looking completely lost. While outside, Xiaoying is having a total meltdown over how embarrassing that whole scene was, and JoJo lectures her about how reckless it was to eat a crystal, warning her she got lucky this time, but she just tearfully explains that she wanted to have special abilities just like her brothers, though he admits to himself he could sense her power all along. So her outburst wasn't a total shock. So instead of staying mad, he decides to teach her how to actually control her new gift, telling her to close her eyes and feel the energy flowing through her entire body, letting her visualize the power becoming a natural instinct, an extension of herself, and he instructs her to use this newfound sense to perceive the world in a different way. So when he asks what she sees, her eyes glow green as she simply answers, life. With her eyes glowing green, Xiaoying realizes she can perceive the very flow of life itself, and she quickly discovers she can actually control this energy with just a touch. To test it, she focuses her power on the ground, instantly sprouting a plant from a seed, leaving her a little underwhelmed as she asks if her ability is just making things grow faster. JoJo confirms it, but she's confused when she sees him demonstrating the same power right beside her, until their other brother appears with a fresh batch of potatoes, absolutely thrilled that her ability solves their food problem. Xiaoying, however, is completely horrified by the revelation that her epic superpower is just for farming. She'd been imagining something way cooler, like shooting energy beams or summoning storms, but instead, she's just a glorified farmer and she collapses in total disappointment. JoJo, however, realizes it's too convenient that they both awakened powers, suspecting it's more than just luck. JoJo realizes it's way too convenient that both he and his sister awakened powers, but his thoughts are shattered the next morning by an incredibly loud rooster, which he immediately grabs by the neck, clearly annoyed by the wake-up call. He finds one of the survivors, Uncle Nu, and asks where he managed to get a chicken, and the old man proudly shows off both a rooster and a hen he's been raising himself. Turns out, he received them as a thank you gift for helping at the village livestock farm years ago, which gives JoJo an idea since he remembers the farm isn't far from their house. So the group heads over to the now abandoned Kingshan village breeding farm, where he lays out their simple new mission: catch poultry and gather eggs for a sustainable food source, while one of the other survivors just listens to the plan with a silent, stoic expression. Upon arriving at the farm, one of the survivors immediately worries about the bodies turning into zombies, but a closer look reveals they were all stabbed to death, which is somehow even worse. JoJo tells them not to worry, since zombies avoid sunlight, so they're safe for now. This others start hoping for rescue, clinging to the idea that the outside world is still fine. But JoJo immediately crushes that dream, telling them not to have such high expectations. He explains the real threat isn't the zombies, but the virus that's already destroyed civilization, and in this new world, the only people they can truly rely on are themselves. His grim but realistic speech leaves the other survivors completely silent, letting the reality sink in. This heavy atmosphere is suddenly broken when someone shouts they've found a ton of eggs, and Uncle Nu confirms their mission was a success, looking at a massive haul. Uncle Nu confirms the eggs are viable, meaning they can start breeding their own food. But another survivor points out the obvious problem. Where are all the actual chickens? It's a valid point, since even dead birds should have left some kind of trace behind, right before a loud squawk from a nearby building answers their question for them, revealing a massive goose that's apparently been hiding out this whole time. This bird spreads its wings and lets out a threatening honk, looking ready for a fight. But the guy with glasses is just thrilled they've found any living livestock at all. He confidently asks for the sack, claiming he's an expert at catching these things, then proceeds to give everyone a detailed lesson on the proper, gentle technique, proudly showing off his catch while declaring how easy geese are to handle. This guy with the glasses proudly holds up his prize, thinking this goose is too stupid to be a threat, which is immediately proven wrong when the bird lunges straight for his throat. But Jojo's reflexes are faster, his eyes flaring red as he intercepts the attack, effortlessly tossing the surprisingly aggressive creature aside to save the clueless survivor. This guy is left completely stunned, having no idea what just happened or why he was attacked, but Jojo senses a much bigger danger and screams for everyone to run for their lives. This whole group takes off as a loud thud echoes from behind them, only for Jogo to throw out an arm and stop everyone dead in their tracks, because a massive bird leg just slammed down right in front of their escape path, revealing the goose has transformed into a gigantic multi-necked monstrosity. It's not just the big one, a whole flock of smaller, fanged geese suddenly takes to the air, and with the multi-headed monstrosity bearing down, the group is completely cornered. So Jojo spots a potential escape route, yelling for everyone to follow him down an alley, leading the others as they sprint for their lives through the abandoned farm complex. But the two older survivors are already sweating and clearly struggling to keep up the pace, which only gets worse when the smaller geese start swarming them from all sides. And Jojo realizes the others are too slow and just about out of energy, so seeing they won't make it, his eye flares green as he decides to try something new. He focuses his power, and thick green vines suddenly erupt from the ground, wrapping a nearby pipe, revealing he has the exact same life-manipulating ability as his sister, and he's about to use it. Jojo unleashes his own grow ability, sending massive vines erupting through the alley, which instantly form a dense, thorny cage around the giant goose monstrosity, completely trapping the multi-headed beast and its smaller flock in a tangle of green. And with the mutants temporarily stopped, he screams at the others to run for it. This group sprints away, but their moment of relief is unfortunately very short-lived, because another horde of those mutated geese is blocking the path right in front of them. They're completely surrounded by the fanged creatures, with absolutely nowhere left to run. So Jojo spots a dormitory building and tells everyone to make a break for it. They manage to get inside, but the older survivors are completely exhausted from the chase, and while one guy panics about being trapped, Uncle New just tells Jojo he's their only hope. As the mutated geese swarm the building, one of the survivors is already losing hope, but Jojo blames himself for this mess, vowing to get every single one of them out alive. He considers using his full power to just carry the others and run, but it's a huge gamble, until the guy with glasses spots a working computer, realizing the farm still has electricity. This completely catches Jojo off guard, since the power grid should be long dead by now, but Brother Huang confirms it's online and immediately gets an idea, typing like a madman. While he works, the others desperately try to barricade the door against the attacking flock, screaming at him to hurry up because that flimsy door is about to give way, so he asks for 5 minutes, then immediately corrects himself, saying he only needs 3, and in that time, he claims he'll be able to deal with all of these mutants for good. Jojo knows that flimsy door won't last the 3 minutes they need, so realizing they're just sitting ducks, he decides to go on the offensive himself, kicking the door wide open with a menacing red aura flaring around him. And after stepping out into the hall, he lets it slam shut right behind him. He then locks it from the outside, trapping himself with the mutants to buy his friends time, which leaves the flock of geese momentarily stunned by his sudden appearance. That surprise quickly turns to aggression as the entire horde lunges at him, and he's immediately overwhelmed by their numbers, getting slammed hard to the ground. But even while pinned, his eyes glow as he gathers a ball of raw power in his fist, unleashing a devastating shockwave that erupts from the floor, wiping out the entire flock. Jojo catches his breath, thinking his attack should have bought them some time, but his eyes flare red as he senses something is still terribly wrong, because the remains of the geese are twitching and merging back together on the floor. Inside, the others are yelling for Brother Huang to hurry up, hearing the chaos outside, and he shouts back that he's on the final step, telling Jojo to just hang on, promising that once his download is complete, this whole nightmare will finally end. But outside, Jojo's eyes widen in pure disbelief at what's forming, as all that mutated flesh has reformed into a single towering monstrosity with a horrifying grin. This creature lets out an earth-shattering roar, its massive jaw unhinging completely, and it lunges straight for Jojo, ready to devour him whole. Jojo digs in, his power flaring as he tries to hold back the monstrosity's overwhelming force. But he immediately realizes this thing is on a whole other level, and he's no match for it. And the beast proves it by swatting him aside, sending him crashing hard across the floor. He's already spitting blood from the impact, but he's definitely not out of the fight yet, struggling to push himself up as the creature looms over him, ready to finish the job. Inside, Uncle New sees how bad it is and tells Jojo to just take Brother Huang and run, offering to stay behind and stall the monster himself to give them a chance. He insists there's no time to hesitate, warning that if they don't go now, everyone will die here. But Jojo gets back on his feet and helps the old man up, reminding him of his promise. Because with both his powers flaring, he declares he's not abandoning a single person. As the flesh monster lets out a final deafening roar, Jojo feels his two powers, life and destruction, twisting together into something new. And this strange new energy gives him a sudden surge of confidence, because he realizes he can win, launching himself forward with everything he has left. He cocks back a punch crackling with both red and green power, slamming it directly into the creature's face with absolutely devastating force. which completely obliterates the monstrosity in a single overwhelming blow. This dangerous red aura finally fades from his hand as the threat disappears, leaving him panting and bruised, wondering if it's finally over for real. But the cost was immense as he collapses to the ground, completely drained and unable to move. Just as he thinks it's over, the walls of the dormitory start to crack and buckle, and more of those horrifying goose heads burst right through into the hallway. Jojo realizes with a sinking feeling that there are even more of them than before, as a whole new flock of the smaller mutants swarms in to join the attack. He yells at the others to get ready to move, knowing they're about to be overrun. But at that exact moment, a strange melody starts playing from the farm's loudspeakers, which unbelievably causes the attacking geese to freeze right in their tracks. He's completely baffled, watching as the creatures suddenly become docile, and even the giant monstrosity seems to be listening intently to the music. This smaller geese are now just waddling around harmlessly, their aggression completely vanished. With the music blaring, Brother Huang checks on Jojo and Uncle Niu, acting like he just saved the day, and Uncle Niu is completely baffled, asking what the hell he did to make the mutants just walk away. Turns out, he hacked the farm's broadcast system to play their old feeding time jingle, luring them all back home. So with the crisis averted by a literal dinner bell, the group finally gets the hell out of that farm. While driving, Uncle Niu reveals he managed to snag a whole clutch of eggs that somehow survived the escape, which he apparently grabbed while Brother Huang was busy with his expert goose-catching demonstration earlier. This others worry they'll hatch into more monsters, but Uncle Niu insists they've shown no signs of mutation yet. Sometime later, they've established a new base, and it's time to finally organize all the survivors. A woman steps up to a chalkboard, announcing she's laying out the new rules on behalf of Commander Joe, starting with the security team, who will be responsible for patrolling the perimeter of their new home. She continues laying out the new command structure, with the security team led by Jojo and the others, followed by the agriculture and livestock team, who are basically in charge of not letting them starve. A team co-led by Uncle Niu and the woman speaking, who unironically calls herself Magical Farming Sister Sakura. Then there's the logistics team, who will be handling all the inventory and supply distribution, which is being put in the hands of two of the older women, Li Qin and another they call Mom. And last but not least is the exploration team, tasked with scouting the dangerous world outside, a crucial job that falls to Jojo's sister and another survivor named Brother Zhuo. After the meeting, Sakura asks for a performance review, and Jojo actually praises her work, but later that night, he's already packing a bag for their next dangerous outing, determined to bring weapons and medical supplies to avoid repeating the disaster at the farm. As Jojo prepares to leave, he's approached by Li Qin from the logistics team, who immediately gets way too close for comfort and starts begging him to take her along on his mission. She admits she's terrified of his sister, Jo Lo, and wants to follow him instead, suggesting they could ditch everyone else for a safe spot she knows in the village. She gets desperate, promising to fulfill his every desire if he just agrees to her plan. But Jojo's expression is just pure, unfiltered disgust. He grabs his bag and coldly warns her not to talk about abandoning family ever again, before reminding her that she was the one who abandoned him first. A comment that clearly hits a nerve, leaving her completely stunned. After that incredibly awkward encounter with Li Qin, Jojo is ready to head out, but he stops at the door, realizing someone was waiting for him, and it turns out to be Sakura, who's apparently decided to tag along. She asks if he's ready to go, giving him a look that's a little too friendly, but Jojo just gives a blunt, "all right," completely ignoring the vibe she's putting out. They arrive at a remote fishing spot, and Sakura wonders who would even set up shop out here, so he explains that some guy named Lin Mu opened it, and he just found it by chance. This name reminds her of someone else, Lin Jae, and she asks why that guy hated him so much back in the day. Jojo flashes back, explaining that Lin Jae was a rich bully who he constantly outcompeted in everything, and the rivalry got personal when he started getting close to Li Qin, so Lin Jae swooped in and took her from him. Sakura points out that Lin Jae treated Li Qin horribly, questioning if he ever actually liked her, and Jojo confirms it was all just petty revenge aimed at him, insisting he doesn't care, adding that their supposed engagement was just an arrangement their parents forced on them after school. That whole story seems to give Sakura a lot to think about as they finally reach their destination, a quiet, remote fishing spot with a small wooden dock leading out over the water. She's still processing everything he just revealed about his past with Li Qin and Lin Jae, until they find what they came for, a surprisingly large underground cellar hidden nearby. As they head down the stairs, it becomes clear this isn't just some storage room, because it's sealed by a ridiculously over-the-top bank vault door, leaving Sakura speechless. He lies that he just took a chance after hearing Lin Jae mention it, but the truth is, this is where he survived in his past life. Jojo realizes that, unlike his past life, the power in this bunker is still on, making him wonder if their actions have already started changing the timeline, or if it means there are other survivors already hiding out down here. He suddenly lets out a yell, which completely startles Sakura nearby, but she quickly plays it off, saying she was just spooked by something else, pointing to a creepy mounted fish head on the wall and asking what kind it is. His eyes lock onto the so-called decoration with a sudden sense of dread, and without a word, he hurls his backpack straight at the wall with full force. He instantly realizes this isn't just some trophy. It's a mutated fish species, and right on cue, the decoration opens its mouth, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. But before it can attack, Jojo unleashes a brand new power, blasting it with a jet of water, which instantly freezes the entire mutated fish head solid on the wall, leaving him completely shocked that he even had an ability like that. But the ice immediately shatters as the creature breaks free, revealing its monstrous body. Sakura immediately runs to his side to make sure he's okay after the blast, but Jojo knows they can't win this fight, yelling that they have to run for it. He glances back toward the entrance, hoping they can still make it out, only to watch an absolute horror as the massive vault door starts to close, sealing them inside the bunker with the monster hot on their heels. With their only escape route now gone, he drops his bag, realizing they're trapped. With the vault door sealed, Jojo knows there's no time to find another way out, realizing he's got no choice but to take this mutated fish down right here and now. So he grabs a blade and charges straight at the creature, swinging for its head, but his attack just bounces right off its armored hide with a frustrating clang, revealing its scales are way tougher than he expected. Because even a powerful two-handed strike does absolutely nothing to it, and the sheer force of the impact just sends him stumbling backward, forcing him to scan the monster's body for any kind of weak point. And as the creature roars, preparing to lunge forward for an attack, his eyes lock onto a vulnerable spot right underneath its gills. With the weak spot exposed, Jojo drives his blade straight into the creature's gills, plunging the weapon deep into its flesh, but this thing is full of surprises, as a strange red tentacle suddenly shoots out from the wound to block his strike. A whole mess of them wrap around his blade, completely stopping the attack cold, and he realizes a mutated parasite lives in its gills, acting as a symbiotic bodyguard. With its parasite saving it, the fish monster whips its massive tail around for a counter, smashing Jojo into a pile of machinery with absolutely devastating force. He gets slammed hard, surrounded by sparking wires and the wreckage of the bunker, and he's clearly dazed from the impact, struggling to get his bearings after that brutal hit. Which is terrible timing because the monster is already looming over him, charging up another attack. With no other options, Jojo pulls out a high-voltage device he had stashed away, and just as the monster lunges with its mouth wide open, he shoves the weapon straight down its throat, unleashing a massive electrical blast that fries the creature from the inside out. He's clearly drained from the fight, but he's alive, and it dawns on him that this monster wasn't a random mutation. It was deliberately planted here as a trap. After Sakura checks on him, he insists they need to get out of there immediately, so she rushes over to the vault door to try and open their only escape route. But the massive wheel won't even budge an inch, and she realizes with horror that someone must have locked them in from the outside. Realizing they're trapped, Jojo's eyes glow as he refuses to give up, and he unleashes a powerful unknown red energy from his body, blasting it directly at the massive vault door with everything he has. After the smoke clears, Sakura stares at the result of his desperate move, which has completely encased the door in a strange crystalline substance. Jojo knows this bank vault door is their only way out, but he has to admit that even his strongest power couldn't break it open. This massive energy output leaves him completely drained and struggling to stand, so Sakura tells him to rest while she inspects the ice for any weaknesses. But as he sits down, Jojo's eyes lock onto something unusual about the ice he just created. Sakura confirms the bad news after a quick search of the bunker. There are absolutely no other exits, leaving them completely trapped. Jojo knows they're on a clock, with the freezing temperatures and dwindling air supply, but just as he's about to lose hope, Sakura pulls out a strange purple crystal. He's completely caught off guard by her sudden move, as she asks if eating the crystal will give her powers just like his. Jojo immediately tries to stop her, yelling about how insanely dangerous that is. But she argues that they're both dead anyway if they just sit here and wait. She declares this is their final gamble, betting her life on awakening an ability to save them, and he recognizes it instantly, knowing this is the crystal that grants the power of perception. He just gives her a confident look, asking if she's ready to take the risk, and inspired by his courage, Sakura decides she has no reason to be afraid anymore. So without another moment of hesitation, she puts the dangerous crystal in her mouth. Meanwhile, back in the woods, someone is desperately shouting for Jojo and Xiaobingbing, revealing it's the other survivors who are furious that he just took off without a word. Just as they're complaining, a terrifying roar suddenly echoes through the trees, which makes them panic since zombies aren't supposed to be active during the day. Suddenly, something blurs past them at an impossible speed, catching them completely off guard, and they spot a figure standing by a tree, realizing with dread that it's Huang Dao. Except it's not him anymore, it's some kind of monstrous creature with a horrifying grin. Elsewhere, the other survivors are now trapped on a desolate rooftop overlooking the city, with one of them still calling out for Jojo, completely oblivious to their new problem. This guy who was complaining earlier is just sitting there in total shock after the attack, while Xiaobingbing, the group sniper, is already set up and trying to get him to focus. She urgently tells him to get up, because what's coming is way worse than Huang Dao, as she spots multiple enemies approaching through the scope of her rifle. She quickly identifies the threat, 4 rank 4 dog types and 2 terrifying rank 6 tiger types. This other guy panics, realizing those things will gather a horde in minutes, insisting they call for backup. But Xiaobingbing knows they're completely out of time for any kind of rescue. She decides on a desperate plan. She'll act as bait to lure the monsters away and buy everyone else time. This other guy tells Xiaobingbing she's useless to them on this mission, arguing that since she hasn't awakened an ability, she'll just be a burden. She's frustrated, wondering why eating a crystal didn't work for her, but her captain just tells her to make sure she comes back alive. With a determined look, she simply agrees to the dangerous plan. Meanwhile, back in the bunker, Sakura is desperately trying to wake Jojo, but something is clearly wrong as steam starts rising from her body. He wakes up completely confused, asking why she's suddenly burning up, and she can only say that her entire body feels like it's being roasted from the inside, as the crystal's power surges through her with agonizing intensity. To cool her down, JoJo offers to grab some ice from the strange substance on the door, but Sakura is already shedding layers from the intense heat, telling him to look away. She leans against a freezer to get some relief, managing to say she feels a little better, but then her eyes start glowing as she tells him her new power is letting her see zombies everywhere. He calmly explains that this is just her ability awakening, telling her not to freak out. JoJo confirms to himself that it's a perception power, just as he predicted from the crystal. Suddenly, Sakura's vision expands and she realizes she can see what's directly below them. Her new sight reveals a whole horde of zombies right under the floor, which is not great news. This gives JoJo an idea though, and after a quick search, he announces that he's found it. He pulls open a hidden hatch in the floor, revealing a secret passage leading down into the darkness. As they head down into the passage, Sakura immediately gags on some kind of horrible smell, and JoJo recognizes it as brimstone, realizing this must be a secret gunpowder smuggling warehouse, which means the entire ice bank above was just an elaborate front for this operation. Their investigation gets cut short when a zombie roars at them from the darkness ahead, revealing a lone infected stumbling right into their path, ready for a fight. JoJo admits it's too dark for him to see, telling Sakura he's counting on her new powers, and he just gives her a confident look while getting his own weapon ready for whatever she spots. After a moment of hesitation, Sakura looks completely overwhelmed by the responsibility, but she steels herself and agrees, her eyes flaring to life with golden energy. Wasting no time, she starts calling out targets, spotting the first one 10 meters straight ahead. With Sakura calling the shots, JoJo immediately slices through the first zombie in the dark, and she confirms the kill, already locking onto the next threat with her new perception ability, becoming his eyes as she calls out targets approaching from all sides in the pitch black, allowing him to cut through the horde with absolute precision, trusting her directions completely. He spins around to handle another one she spots sneaking up from behind, and they work in perfect sync, clearing out the entire passage without a single misstep, until finally the last of the infected is down, leaving them at the end of the tunnel. This passage opens up into a large storage room stacked high with boxes, and Sakura asks him what their next move is, looking around the empty space, only to realize they're staring at a solid wall. It's a complete dead end. JoJo spots a waterway, figuring it's their one shot to reach a fishing pond outside, so with no other options, they both dive into the dark water, heading for the exit, swimming through the submerged tunnel and hoping this is the way out for good. Sakura feels a wave of relief, thinking her new power actually helped them escape, which is exactly when a fish the size of a bus shows up to prove her wrong. She turns around just in time to see the absolute nightmare swimming right for her. But JoJo grabs her hand, yanking her out of the immediate danger zone, pulling her clear just as the monster's massive jaws are about to close in. Now he's just pissed, realizing they've traded one trap for another, much bigger one, and Sakura can only look on, completely stunned by their absolutely terrible luck. In the chaos, JoJo is forced to let go of Sakura's hand, and she's caught in the monster's jaws, though she has a strangely confident smirk. As JoJo sinks helplessly into the dark water, he can only watch as the massive fish starts to swim away with her. This moment triggers a painful memory of him failing to save Xia Bingbing before, and he reaches out, absolutely refusing to let that happen again. Sinking to the bottom, he seems to ask himself a question, wondering if anyone really thinks he'd just let go and fail a second time. With that resolve, a completely new green energy begins to flare up in his eyes, unleashing strange vine-like tendrils of power that surge through the water. His new green tendrils surge through the water, lashing out at the giant fish, and they begin to wrap around its massive body with incredible speed, as JoJo commands his power to completely bind the underwater monster, leaving the creature instantly trapped and unable to move as the energy holds it tight. This gives Sakura, still stuck in its mouth, a moment to look back at him, calling his name as she watches the impossible rescue unfold. But that's when a strange red energy suddenly erupts from inside the fish's jaws, creating a massive underwater blast that expands in a violent red cloud. JoJo is blown away by the force, completely unprepared for this second power surge, and when the water finally clears, Sakura is lying unconscious on the muddy bank. Sakura finally starts to come to, waking up on the shore of the lake, finding herself lying safely next to a warm campfire, completely out of the water. This first thing she does is sit up and call out for JoJo, who's right there, confirming that she's finally awake after the whole ordeal. He's even heated up a can of food for them, knowing they need to get their strength back. She quietly accepts the meal, just thankful to be alive after that mess. Sakura then asks what happened to that monster fish, since she blacked out during the fight, and JoJo grimly explains that while he handled it, this kind of mutation is spreading everywhere. As she holds the warm can, she calls his name, clearly having something on her mind. He begs her to trust him as his brother lets out another agonizing roar, and the older man confirms that Huang is about to lose control completely. This makes JoJo realize he's running out of time, wondering if his plan is already too late, concluding that before his mother's power can awaken, he'll have to kill his brother himself. His brother strains against the ropes, screaming JoJo's name in a last moment of clarity, and with the infection taking over, he begs him to hurry up and just end it. His final plea is for JoJo to kill him before he completely turns, and with no other choice, our boy raises his sword, apologizing for what he has to do. His brother seems to accept his fate, ready to join someone he lost. But just as JoJo is about to strike, a massive surge of blue energy erupts through the room. He stops dead, completely shocked by this sudden power that isn't his own, because it turns out his mother's ability has just awakened, and she's stepping in to intervene. A glowing cross symbol appears on her face as she channels this new healing power, directing the cleansing blue energy right at her infected son, changing everything in an instant. This blue light completely purges the zombie infection, the red in his brother's eyes finally fading away, and the cleansing power envelops his entire body, reversing the transformation in seconds. With the virus gone, he stands there completely cured, proudly announcing his full recovery. His sister and the others can only stare in disbelief, wondering if their mom really just did that. Even the older guy is flustered by her sudden display of power, asking how she became so strong. Meanwhile, the mom herself seems totally oblivious, confused why everyone is suddenly staring at her. Her son tries to get their attention again, awkwardly pointing out that he's not a zombie anymore. But JoJo just smirks, confirming this was exactly what he was hoping would happen. He puts it all together. His gamble of giving her the crystal paid off perfectly. This older man explains to the others that her new purification ability is what saved Xiao Huang. His sister is just blown away by their mom's sudden youth, who's clearly enjoying the attention, and JoJo confirms that awakening an ability can completely change a person's body. Meanwhile, his brother wonders if this miracle cure works on acne or can reverse full-blown zombies, but JoJo clarifies it only works on the recently infected, not the already turned. This older guy is just thrilled, realizing they no longer have to live in fear of infection, though he gets a little too familiar and earns a slap before their mom gets serious. She understands her new power, but there's one detail about the rescue that doesn't add up, asking JoJo how he knew beforehand that she would be the one to save Xiao Huang. He admits he can't logically explain it, but he just had a gut feeling she'd awaken this ability, revealing he can also sense his siblings' powers, and this strange perception is growing stronger. He notes a weird limitation though, since he can't seem to sense Xia Bingbing at all, which makes him theorize his power might only work on actual blood relatives, and the more abilities his family awakens, the stronger his own will become. Time for a test, so he asks his sister to scan the area for any remaining zombies, and her eyes immediately flare with that golden energy as she activates her perception, sending out a massive pulse that covers their entire compound and the surrounding area. Her vision expands over the whole town, spotting hundreds of zombies lurking in the forest, plus another huge group that's gathering on the back mountain. JoJo cuts right to the chase, asking if she sees any rank 2 threats out there, and she confirms with a grim look that there are exactly 3 of them. JoJo is feeling pretty good, thinking the 3 crystals are enough to power up his family, but his sister's enhanced senses suddenly flare up, her eyes glowing with a warning. He immediately asks her what's wrong, sensing the shift in the air, and she reports that the zombies are all on the move again, converging from all directions as if they're being called to a single location. She pinpoints the center of the horde, realizing they're all gathering around Lin Jae, which leaves JoJo completely shocked since he was sure he saw that guy burn. Then it all clicks. Lin Jae must have been the one who locked them in the ice storage, meaning he's the bastard behind the attack that almost turned his brother for good. His sister asks what they should do now, if they should just prepare for another siege. JoJo realizes Lin Jae needs about a day to gather his full zombie army, and decides that sitting around waiting for a siege is the worst possible move, concluding they need to take the initiative and hit him with a surprise attack. So he heads straight into the forest alone, calling out for his enemy to come out, knowing full well that Lin Jae is hiding somewhere in the darkness. A voice laughs from above as Lin Jae appears on a rock, shocked to see him, and with glowing red eyes he taunts JoJo for willingly walking to his death. But JoJo just calmly asks if this means he faked being burned alive last time. This question clearly hits a nerve, because Lin Jae absolutely loses his mind, revealing a new pair of black wings as he lunges forward to attack. JoJo stands his ground, completely unfazed as Lin Jae prepares to strike, easily dodging the attack as his enemy's new wing blades slice through the air, and in the next moment he lands a clean counterattack of his own, which confirms his suspicion about Lin Jae's condition was right all along. Turns out the guy's old burn wounds never fully healed, explaining why he used traps instead of fighting directly. So JoJo just calls him out for being a coward who was too weak for a real fight. Lin Jae snaps back, warning him not to get cocky since he's all alone out here. But his threat is cut short by a massive explosion lighting up the forest behind him. JoJo smirks, revealing he knew about the zombie reinforcements and sent his own people to intercept them, promising that this time, with no army to hide behind, Lin Jae is going to die for sure. This forest erupts in a massive fireball where JoJo's team ambushed the horde, leaving nothing but a smoldering crater where the zombies used to be. Meanwhile, elsewhere, some other guy gloats from a tree saying he was waiting for his targets, laughing like a maniac as he tells them to turn to ash. But his intended victim steps into empty air, clearly falling from a great height, and a scream cuts through the night as she plummets downwards. Luckily, another man manages to catch her just in time, breaking her fall, holding her close as she looks completely shaken by the whole ordeal. At the same time, the remaining zombies start to regroup under the moonlight, and a woman with a strange glowing mark on her face notes they've gathered once more. With her new powers fully awakened, the mom unleashes her cleansing energy, sending out a massive wave of blue light that just tears through the night and any zombie caught in the blast gets completely vaporized on the spot. She can't help but admire her own work, noting how convenient it is to wipe out an entire group at once, which earns her some major praise from the big guy as she radios Bing Bing to report the area is clear. Now that one spot is handled, she immediately asks for the next zombie location, and back at base, Bing Bing points to a map, directing them to a group of 24 about a kilometer away. She confirms she's safe and sound in a cellar, looking way too confident for someone hiding from the apocalypse. Before checking in on another guy, Joe Shu, as a flash of red energy lights up the forest. But he just calmly replies not to worry, since his own power makes dealing with these things a total cakewalk. This big guy radios in, laughing about how their ambush completely blindsided the zombie horde, and Joe Shu agrees, giving all the credit for their success to Xia Bingbing's intel, with the other guy calling her their lucky star and even suggesting she be their future commander. Back at base, Bing Bing plays it humble over the comms, but her glowing eyes tell a very different story, and her perception suddenly flares up as she realizes something is happening with Jojo, who has Lin Jae completely cornered, surrounding him with a vortex of his own blue energy. Jojo just stands there with a smirk, looking totally in control of the situation, while Lin Jae is clearly on his last legs, struggling to even breathe against the overwhelming power. Despite his monstrous state, he screams that he refuses to lose this fight, but Jojo just mocks him, asking what kind of comeback he expects with nothing left. Jojo calmly tells Lin Jae it's over, a flicker of blue energy ready at his command, trapping his enemy in a swirling vortex with seemingly no way out. But Lin Jae just grins, ominously agreeing that yes, it is indeed over. At that exact moment, his sister's perception flares up as she screams a warning over the comms, because those 3 rank 2 zombies she spotted have just surrounded Jojo in the forest. He recognizes them as some kind of mutant rat type, clearly surprised by the sudden backup, but he's not impressed, knowing that rat zombies are notoriously weak in a direct fight. He taunts Lin Jae, saying these pathetic minions aren't going to be enough to save him, but his enemy's smile just gets wider, asking whoever said they were here to fight for him, revealing a much darker plan as one of the giant beasts opens its jaws wide. It turns out his plan was never to fight with minions, but to absorb the other 2 crystals, and he shoves them into his mouth, his body immediately starting to twist and mutate, exploding into a monstrous new form, a full-blown rank 3 mutant demon. This power-up completely rewrites the rules of the fight, leaving the 2 of them alone in the forest for a final showdown, and Lin Jae is absolutely loving his new overwhelming strength. Jojo knows this is a whole different level of threat, realizing he has to go all out now, so he unleashes his own power, a storm of red energy erupting from his body, cracking the very ground beneath his feet as he prepares to attack, before launching himself into the air to meet the demon head-on. With his eyes glowing red, Jojo prepares to face this new monstrous threat, and he clashes with the transformed Lin Jae, meeting overwhelming demonic power head-on. But his attack is casually swatted aside, showing a massive gap in their strength. The sheer force of the blow sends Jojo stumbling backward, clearly outmatched, as Lin Jae mocks him, asking if this pathetic display is all he's capable of. Jojo glares back, his own energy flaring in response to the taunt, launching himself forward for another desperate punch with everything he has left, but Lin Jae catches the fist effortlessly, calling the attempt truly disappointing. This demon leans in, demanding to know if this is the absolute limit of his power, and for the first time, Jojo looks genuinely shocked by his enemy's strength. Lin Jae unleashes a devastating attack, roaring that this is how a real fight feels, but he's stunned to realize Jojo has yet another ability up his sleeve, having somehow escaped by phasing directly through the ground beneath him. Absolutely furious, the demon vows to hunt him down and then wipe out his entire family. Elsewhere, Jojo reappears against a tree, completely drained from that last-ditch escape, admitting he never fought a rank 3 mutant before and severely underestimated its strength. He knows that even with his brother and mom, they might not be a match for this thing. But just as he's trying to form a new plan, the whole forest is bathed in red light, a power that seems to be coming from his brother Joe Shu, who senses a change, looking around at the strange new energy field that's suddenly surrounding him. Under a blood-red moon, the entire forest is now bathed in an unnatural crimson light, and Joe Shu realizes this massive energy field is far beyond what a rank 3 mutant can create. At the same time, his mom's own blue power begins to form a protective dome nearby, which rapidly expands to cover a huge section of the forest in a brilliant flash, until the 2 opposing energies collide in a cataclysmic explosion of red and blue. Joe Shu watches in horror, realizing this was never part of their plan at all, because he can now see 2 distinct figures caught in the middle of the energy clash. Back with Jojo, the demon Lin Jae smirks, saying he's impressed our boy could distract him, a comment that leaves Jojo completely stunned by this sudden turn of events as Lin Jae leans in to ask if it's all because he underestimated his true power. Lin Jae unleashes a devastating attack of energy blades, clearly done playing around, and the blast carves a path of pure destruction straight through the forest, slamming directly into Jojo's last known position with overwhelming force, leaving him completely battered and broken in the bottom of a newly formed crater. He's taken a serious hit, barely able to even lift his head from the rubble as Lin Jae looms over him, grabbing his face and mocking his inability to escape this time. With nowhere left to run, the demon tells him it's finally time to die. But at that exact moment, the two massive energy fields finally collide, engulfing them in light. A mysterious horned woman suddenly appears, stopping Lin Ji's final blow cold, leaving him totally stunned. Wondering why everything around him has suddenly frozen in time. Jojo is completely frozen in place, realizing he can't even move his body, but even paralyzed, he finds he can still activate one of his own abilities, managing to unleash some kind of counter just as the demon moves in for the kill. As the two massive energy fields continue to dominate the entire landscape, this demon suddenly screams out in agony, clutching his face in shock and pain, revealing Jojo's last-ditch attack completely took out one of his eyes. With the demon reeling, the mysterious horned woman now stands between them, having saved our boy's life, forcing Lin Jae to curse his luck and retreat back into the forest for now. A battered Jojo can only look up at the woman who just saved him, who calls out his name as he finally collapses from his injuries. Shu finally arrives on the scene, frantically calling out to his brother, and Jojo, barely holding on, tells him Lin Jae escaped into the woods, realizing this whole situation is spiraling out of control with powerful new players on the board. Meanwhile, the story cuts to a completely different survivor camp out in the wilderness, where some poor guy is kneeling with his hands bound, clearly a new captive. One of the survivors reports to his boss that they picked this guy up near Qingshan village, prompting the leader, a massive dude with glowing red eyes, to ask about the zombie situation there. This captive looks absolutely terrified, hesitating to even speak, before finally admitting the village is swarming with about 1,000 of them. But the leader just scoffs, as his crew dismisses the guy as trash for being scared of such a small number. This leader presses the captive for intel, asking about the strongest zombie in the village, and the terrified guy admits there's a single rank 4 out there, which only makes the leader grin, completely unimpressed as he orders his men to tie the guy up. This captive looks over and sees other people already bound to posts, realizing with horror that this survivor camp is actually keeping slaves. Seeing his fate, he makes a desperate break for it, sprinting toward the trees, but a panicked glance over his shoulder confirms he's not getting away that easily as a massive wall of fire suddenly erupts from the ground, cutting off his escape. This leader just scoffs, mocking the man for even trying to run, before declaring that high-rank ability users like them are the new humans chosen by God. This slaver leader finishes his little speech, declaring that the weak are destined to be their slaves. Meanwhile, Shu arrives at the forest where he saw that massive blue light fall yesterday, figuring it had to be connected to some kind of high-level ability user's fight, but he knows that powerful humans can be far more dangerous than any zombie out there. He pushes deeper into the woods to investigate, only to find a massive crater carved into the earth, and at the very bottom, a strange pillar of pure white energy is pulsing upwards, leaving him staring down at the bizarre scene, trying to make sense of what he's seeing, and realizing that whatever this glowing thing is, it's what created this entire crater. It seems to be some kind of enormous, otherworldly crystal jutting out of the ground, and the sheer scale of it leaves him completely stunned, sweating at the implications. Staring at the crystal, Shu is hit with a bizarre and overwhelming urge to actually eat it, and despite himself, he starts reaching out to make contact with the massive energy source. But before he can touch it, sharp spikes of power suddenly erupt from the ground. At that moment, another person appears in the crater, surrounded by a familiar red aura, and Shu immediately confronts the stranger, demanding to know who the hell he is. This newcomer, a scarred blonde man, just casually greets him like they're old friends, correctly guessing that Shu must be another survivor out here in the wilderness. Then, way too fast, the guy closes the distance and puts a glowing red hand on his neck, complimenting his potential and saying he's worthy of being nurtured, whatever that means. Shu is not impressed, telling him to move his hand and asking one final time for his identity. The scarred man finally decides to introduce himself, holding up a hand like he's granting an audience, giving his name as Shimoda Kahashi with a little bow that's anything but respectful. This guy then reveals he's a rank 3 ability user, his eyes glowing with a seriously menacing purple energy, and Shu, taking that as the threat it is, immediately throws a punch powered by his own red aura. Unfortunately for him, Shimoda Kahashi blocks the attack with one hand, not even flinching as a purple shield forms, their energies clashing in a burst of red and purple as Shu's punch is completely shut down. This sheer force of the block sends Shu stumbling backward, clearly outmatched in this exchange, while Shimoda Kahashi just smirks, mocking him for being so easy to provoke. He claims it was all just a joke, asking why our boy is being so serious, a classic villain move, before revealing his true purpose. He's not here for anyone's family, he's here for the origin crystal. Shu has no idea what an origin crystal is, asking the guy to explain, and Shimoda Kahashi seems surprised, assuming our boy was here for the same prize. He quickly sizes up dismissing Shu as just some rank 1 newbie who stumbled onto the scene, so he decides to give him a little lecture right there in the crater. He explains it like a video game, calling the crystal a vital item for leveling up, saying that eating regular zombie cores can only get an ability user to rank 4 at best. But to reach any rank higher than that, you need something far more potent, pulling a smaller piece from the main crystal and calling it an original core. Shu knows this isn't a freebie, immediately asking what Shimoda Kahashi wants in return. Impressed, the guy says he'll need his help later, telling him to go level up for now. Before leaving, Shimoda Kahashi adds one last piece of cryptic advice he supposedly almost forgot to mention, dropping the bombshell that a so-called god actually exists in this world. Shu is completely thrown, not understanding what this guy is even talking about, and just stands there in the massive crater trying to wrap his head around the wild claim. He starts to wonder if it's possible this apocalyptic world really has a god, but quickly dismisses the idea, figuring Shimoda Kahashi has to be completely insane. That's when he remembers the slaver leader saying the exact same thing, that ability users were chosen. This sudden connection makes him seriously reconsider, wondering if the apocalypse itself is tied to this god. As he's lost in thought, a completely new blue energy starts flaring up around his feet, and in a massive burst of light, it seems Joshu is having some kind of awakening. Joshu realizes this new blue energy isn't just flaring up randomly, as a brand new, glowing blue crystal materializes right where the original core was, confirming his suspicion that it grew from the same powerful site. But before he can process this, the crystal begins pulsing with an insane amount of energy, unleashing a concentrated beam of pure power that shoots directly at him. This blast slams into his chest, completely catching him off guard, and he screams in agony as the raw energy floods his body, making his eyes glow. This power surge lifts him helplessly into the air, caught in a massive vortex of debris, which then creates a thick, unnatural fog that blankets the entire crater, just as his sister arrives, now totally unable to find him or JoJo in the mist. Elsewhere, one of the other survivors is completely baffled by the sudden unnatural fog, while JoJo's sister stomps through it, vowing to beat him up when she finds him, and she quickly spots a lone silhouette standing just ahead in the mist. Assuming it's her brother, she winds up her club with a seriously malicious grin, yelling, "Found you," as she smacks the figure right across the head. Except, surprise, it's not her brother at all, but a very angry-looking zombie, which sends her into a full-blown panic, screaming for it to stay away. But just as the zombie lunges, glowing green vines erupt from the ground, instantly wrapping around the creature and restraining it in midair, leaving the girl staring in shock as her own eyes begin to glow with the same green energy. Just as she's about to scream, her companion grabs her shoulder to keep her quiet, quickly shushing her and insisting they don't make a single sound, because they've spotted a strange, glowing blue silhouette standing in the fog. This terrified girl immediately whispers that it has to be a ghost, but the guy, ever the rational one, tells her not to be ridiculous as they both stare at the unmoving shape, trying to figure out what it is. She starts panicking that the ghost has seen them and is coming over, even as he tries to calm her down, suggesting it's just some weird natural event. And right on cue, the glowing silhouette blurs into motion at incredible speed, making the girl scream that it's definitely a ghost while he's just stunned silent. Meanwhile, that slaver leader with the glowing red eyes spots something in the distance, as a massive pillar of blue energy erupts into the sky, the same one that hit Joshu. This girl with him wonders if it's some kind of divine event, but the leader, a guy with literal laser eyes, tells her to believe in science. He decides to check it out alone, ordering her to head back to camp, and before she can argue, he just blasts off toward the light source. Left behind, the girl's eyes suddenly start glowing with a vibrant green energy, which seems to be drawing power directly from the earth and trees around her. She screams as massive glowing vines erupt from the ground and wrap around her body, before launching her at incredible speed through the forest, following her brother. This slaver leader finally arrives at the crater, his red energy flaring with intent, and he lands right in front of his sister, who's still recovering on the ground, immediately scolding her for ignoring his warning and following him into such a dangerous area. She tries to justify it, saying she only wanted to help, but then points toward the center of the crater, where they both see Joshu floating inside a massive sphere of pure blue energy. It looks like he's absorbing a new crystal core directly into his forehead, completely lost in the process, and the leader, recognizing him as JoJo, yells that he's coming to save him. He immediately powers up his own red energy. Joshu finally wakes up in a bed, getting an earful from his sister for running off alone and being out cold for a day. But he's still totally dazed, just trying to figure out what happened after he passed out in the crater, and she explains he was trapped in a blue energy sphere that just shattered on its own, which is when his eyes suddenly begin to glow with that exact same otherworldly blue light, and he's suddenly seeing a holographic interface overlaid on his sister, detailing her stats and abilities, leaving him completely stunned by this new power that seems to have awakened within him, realizing he's literally reading her character information like it's some kind of video game. A power that works on the other survivors too, revealing their abilities and their dismal chances of ranking up, even showing him the other guy's blood slaughter ability and his own low probability for advancement, which makes him realize that while the initial core is vital, the risk of failure is terrifyingly high and completely unknown. He's now got an initial core, but he knows using it is a huge gamble, and with some unknown enemies on their way, he's running out of time to power up. His brooding is cut short when one of the other survivors wakes him up, and Joshu is still a bit out of it, asking the guy what's going on. This man just asks what he's been thinking about, clearly worried about him zoning out, which triggers his new ability, showing the guy's unawakened giant transformation power and its dismal success rate. He gets out of bed, brushing off their concern while realizing his new sight is basically a cheat code for the apocalypse. His sister immediately asks where he's off to, but he just says he needs some fresh air, then walks out of the room without another word, leaving them both standing there. Naturally, his sister is less than thrilled with his cold attitude after they've been so worried about him. This slaver leader, Lin Ji-ye, watches from a distance, telling his sister to leave Joshu alone for the time being, just as one of the other survivors, Xia Bingbing, brings Joshu a hot meal, happy to see he's awake, and he sits down with her on the balcony to eat, finally getting some food after his whole ordeal. Lin Jie keeps watching, dryly noting to his own crew that Zhou Shu seems to be winning the girl over, which of course just gets him immediately roasted by his sister and their companion for still being single. After finishing his meal, Zhou Shu seems to be feeling a lot more like himself, and he immediately asks Xia Bingbing if she can still track Lin Jie with her sensing ability. She confirms his fears, telling him the guy is completely off her radar and well outside her range. This makes Zhou Shu realize he made a massive mistake by underestimating Lin Jie, who was a nobody in his past life but is now a major threat. Xia Bingbing can only look on, sensing the sudden, dark shift in his demeanor. Xia Bingbing then calls him out, asking why he's been walking around with such a worried expression, reminding him that he was the only one who kept a cool head when the zombies first appeared. And she admits she saw him as this unshakable pillar who could solve any crisis, but she also knows that one person can't carry that kind of weight all on their own. So she offers her support, telling him he can lean on them because they're all family. A word that seems to hit Zhou Shu pretty hard, making him stop and think. And after a beat of awkward silence, she realizes how that might have sounded, getting completely flustered while trying to rephrase it as her being his family, which only makes it worse, until her attempt to explain just dissolves into an embarrassed mess. But Zhou Shu just smiles, assuring her that he understands what she was trying to say. Zhou Shu then calls out the survivors he knows are hiding on the balcony, telling them it's time to talk, which gets Lin Jie and his two companions to finally show themselves, looking pretty wary. And soon they're all driving away, with the others excitedly discussing upgrading abilities and finding more survivors. But Zhou Shu just listens to their hopeful chatter with a grim expression, until Xia Bingbing voices his own concerns, warning that other people aren't necessarily good news, because while people can get along in peaceful times, an apocalypse brings out the absolute worst in them, arguing that desperate humans can become far more dangerous than any zombie. But Zhou Shu turns that logic around, saying who messes with them pay, as they pull up to the fishing spot Zhou Shu mentioned, asking if it really has gunpowder, and Zhou Shu confirms it does, adding with a smirk that there's even more waiting for them there. But his sentence gets cut off by a massive explosion right at their destination, leaving him completely stunned, since that was definitely not part of his plan, because it turns out someone else has already breached the compound's main gate, revealing a squad of heavily armed mercs in full tactical gear moving in, who are already spreading out and securing the area inside the walls. And from a nearby cliff, Lin Jai's sister watches in shock at how many attackers there are, asking her brother where this army came from and why they're suddenly hitting their target. This big guy immediately guesses these mercs must be helping Lin Ji move weapons, which just leaves the rest of the crew completely confused by this sudden development. But Zhou Shu lays it out. He locked that gate, so whoever blew it open knew about the gunpowder inside, leading Xia Bingbing to grumble that some other group obviously beat them to the supplies, though Zhou Shu calmly tells her that's not necessarily what's happening here, and she immediately warns the compound, and she gives a quick count, 52 total, with most being regular grunts. But she also spots a much bigger, more dangerous-looking one in the mix, which Zhou Shu immediately identifies as a third-grade zombie, a serious problem. He realizes the mercs can't use guns inside with all that gunpowder, so he decides they'll just wait for the two groups to tear each other apart. Just as they're settling in to watch, Xia Bingbing senses someone else nearby, making Zhou Shu whip around as he realizes they've been spotted. And sure enough, a lone person is standing on the road right behind them, a fully geared merc with a gas mask, already aiming his pistol straight at them. Zhou Shu screams for everyone to get down as the merc immediately opens fire, forcing the whole crew to dive for cover behind their now shredded car. This big guy and his companion instantly decide to split up and counterattack, with one planning to fire from above while the other blocks him on the ground. This companion flares with red energy and immediately makes his move, but the merc just keeps his pistol trained on them, completely unfazed by the display. These two superpowered guys use their speed to flank him from opposite sides, which prompts the merc to just leap right off the overpass to reposition. A bad move, because the companion is already there to intercept him as he lands, grabbing the merc's face with a glowing hand and shattering his mask's lens. This companion with the red aura slams into the merc, disarming him in a single fluid motion and sends the guy flying into the woods, completely neutralizing the threat in seconds, his eyes still glowing red as he looks down, totally unfazed by the quick fight, leaving the mercenary completely out for the count on the forest floor. And for a moment it looks like the immediate danger is actually over, with the companion even suggesting they take the guy back for interrogation. But the big guy suddenly screams for Zhou Shu to watch out, sensing another attack, as a massive energy blast tears through the air right where he was standing, obliterating a huge tree trunk in a shower of splinters and smoke, and leaving a smoking crater in the ground where he would have been. This blast sends the downed merc's arm flying, landing right in the open, but the red-eyed companion's attention is immediately caught by something else in the crater, spotting a strange, glowing blue orb that looks just like a marble, which makes the big guy realize there's another ability user in the area. And right on cue, a whole volley of these glowing projectiles comes flying at them, with Zhou Shu getting clipped by one of the high-speed attacks, which slices a deep gash right across his forearm, prompting the big guy to rush over and check on him immediately. Zhou Shu just shrugs it off as a flesh wound, asking if they know where the shots came from, but the guy explains they were fired from multiple directions at once, from a very long range. Zhou Shu can't believe they're being attacked by what look like glowing marbles, and the big guy grimly compares it to a pinball machine where they're the jackpot, as another volley of the high-speed projectiles comes screaming through the trees, forcing him to yell out a warning for everyone to stay sharp, which makes Joe Shu realize hiding is pointless since the shooter can obviously see them. But he's confused how someone can have long-range attacks with pinpoint accuracy, because for that to work, the attacker would have to be right on top of them, leading him to a pretty grim conclusion about what's really going on. Turns out there's a second ability user acting as a spotter, a damn zombie, putting the red-eyed companion on high alert as this new threat emerges. This red-eyed companion takes out the zombie spotter with a final ability users, and possibly even more, and from their hiding spot, Lin Jae's sister is screaming for her brothers to get in the car, panicking because she's realized the mercs at the compound have spotted their group too. While back on the road, Joe Shu and his crew are trying to figure out their next move. Deciding a direct fight is suicide without intel, so they're pulling back to strategize. But the new attacker, a blonde guy holding the marbles, is just confused why they're running away. This blonde shooter is pissed at his partner for cutting their shared zombie vision link mid-fight, but his flamboyant companion is too busy with his makeup to care, pointing out he couldn't have seen anything without him. He does admit their targets were surprisingly skilled, definitely not your average survivors, which makes the shooter wonder how they'll explain killing their employer's men, a problem his partner plans to solve by just blaming Joe Shu's crew. This blonde guy tells him to get serious just as a third man, their apparent leader, walks off, getting both of them to finally drop the act and focus on the mission at hand. This leader announces that the ice storage door is open, telling them it's time to get to work, revealing their true tide by the thought of another fight. This sister tries to find a silver lining in the situation, though, reminding everyone about the third-tier zombies and explosives waiting at the compound for the mercs. And she even wonders aloud if maybe the zombies will just solve their problem for them. But the big guy immediately shoots that down, pointing out the enemy has ability users who can handle zombies just fine. With her last bit of hope gone, she just asks what the hell they're supposed to do now. This big guy tries to rally everyone's spirits, vowing they'll fight for their lives if the mercs come knocking, even asking Lin Ji's sister to help him cook up some explosives for a little payback. But Joe Shu is quietly calculating how these new enemies found them in a week when it took the last group months. Realizing they're facing trained soldiers who now control the fishing ground's arsenal and its zombie population, which leaves him stuck between a rock and a hard place. And while she's happy to report they found medicine, Joe Shu is clearly focused on the new threat. Xia Bingbing waits outside looking less than thrilled about this whole situation, while Joe Shu rushes into the hardware store, demanding to see the person they found. His crewmate points to a corner where a blonde man is tied up and waiting for him, so Joe Shu immediately gets down to interrogate the supposed enemy scout, but he's immediately confused, realizing this guy doesn't look like one of the mercs at all. He yanks the Takahashi used his powers to violently take down another person. Back in the present, a terrified Takahashi grabs the nearest crewmate and holds her hostage, turning the simple hardware store interrogation into a full-blown crisis in seconds. Huang Dao desperately tries to de-escalate, insisting they mean no harm, but Takahashi is way too far gone, screaming that he knows they're here to kill him. Joe Shu, however, just stares him down and coldly calls his bluff, telling him to attack, a move that completely Shu just asks him what he thinks, putting the ball back in his court. And Takahashi hesitates for a moment, clearly weighing his options in this bizarre standoff, before letting the hostage go and making the most random request imaginable. He wants beef noodles, because apparently all this guy really wanted was a hot meal, completely diffusing the entire crisis, leaving the rest of the crew to just stare in absolute bewilderment at this turn of events. And the big guy asks Joe Shu if this is the same person they ran into on the mountain, which he confirms. As Takahashi happily scarfs down noodles, Lin Ji's sister is not at all impressed with their new freeloader, and the big guy is just confused why this stranger is suddenly calling him Big Brother. But Joe Shu is more concerned with how different Takahashi seems, and why he doesn't recognize him at all. He runs a quick system scan, confirming the guy's name and his ability. First-tier spatial teleportation, which immediately raises a red flag since Takahashi previously claimed to be third-tier, leaving Joe Shu wondering if this is an act. Back at the table, their new guest is making him, which leaves Takahashi completely baffled, asking what exactly he's supposed to tell them. Joe Shu gets right to it, asking Takahashi how he managed to find their village. And their new guest admits it's a complicated story they might not believe, claiming he escaped a dangerous situation by using his teleportation ability, which doesn't seem to faze Joe Shu, who just asks if he ran into zombies. Takahashi confirms he was chased to the city's edge and teleported in desperation, so Joe Shu zeroes in on the important detail, asking if he's from the city, which their guest nervously confirms, clearly a little shaken up by the memory. Another crew member jumps in, wanting to know if the military has handled the zombies there, but Takahashi's face darkens as he admits the situation is absolutely terrible, flashing back to the first day of the outbreak when the city fell into total chaos. Takahashi begins his story, explaining he hid in a dumpster as the city collapsed into chaos, clinging to the naive hope that rescue would arrive the very next day. But instead, the entire city was completely lost to the undead horde. He watched as some survivors tried to fight back against impossible odds, while others simply gave up, choosing to end their own suffering. Joe Shu cuts the sob story short, telling him to skip the details and get to the point, so Takahashi admits he was about to give up too, until a strange message appeared on his phone, offering a path to survival, telling him to hunt zombies and eat their crystal nuclei to become one of God's chosen. This completely stuns Joshu, who realizes this message about ability users came months too early. This bombshell about eating zombie crystals for powers completely floors Joshu, and he now wonders if there's another person like him who's been reborn, while the big guy asks how the hell people in the city even knew about this stuff, prompting Takahashi to turn it around and ask if they've ever seen the crystals themselves. Which is when Linji's sister proudly announces that all three of them have eaten the nuclei, leaving their guest absolutely stunned as he asks if they've all awakened abilities. And after she smugly confirms it, Takahashi just sighs about how lucky they are. But Joshu immediately latches onto a key detail, asking him to elaborate on his team. So Takahashi explains that on day 3, he joined a massive survivor group of over 100 people, a group that didn't just scavenge but actively hunted zombies for those power-up crystals. Takahashi continues his story, explaining his group's 5 leaders ate the first crystals they found, but only one of them actually awakened powers. The other 4 turned into monsters and were put down. This new powered-up leader then forced everyone into a brutal war with another survivor group, and as things got desperate, he made Takahashi and others consume the crystals to create more soldiers. Most of them didn't make it, and the survivors were just thrown into an endless, crazed fight for survival. He finally escaped that hell, awakening his teleportation just in time to get away from a zombie horde. Hearing this, one of the crewmates is horrified by the city's chaos and glad they're in the village, which Takahashi latches onto immediately, praising how safe and comfortable their setup is here. He then just decides he's staying with them, completely ignoring the crew's protests that nobody invited him. But Joshu cuts in with a grim warning, telling him this place isn't nearly as safe as he thinks. Takahashi is completely floored by this sudden warning, so Joshu explains that they've run into some serious trouble, and if their new freeloader wants to keep eating, he's going to have to help out. Later, as the two of them stand outside, Xiaobingbing watches from a distance, walking over to ask if Joshu is finally done with his questions, but he just says they'll keep Takahashi around for now, since he might be useful. With the deal settled, Takahashi cheerfully introduces himself to everyone, and the rest of the crew gives their names in return, including the big guy, Zhou Jianhao. Takahashi then proceeds to bow deeply to each of them with almost comical formality, leaving the others completely bewildered by his overly familiar and polite act. Linji's sister immediately starts roasting Takahashi for being in his 30s and calling her sister, which sends the guy into a panic as he insists he's actually only 18 years old, leaving the rest of the crew to just awkwardly watch this bizarre age debate unfold, and the girl is having none of it, absolutely refusing to believe he's a teenager. So Takahashi literally drops to his knees, swearing he just looks a bit older for his age. When Joshu, of all people, calmly says that he believes him, prompting a tearful Takahashi to hug him, completely misreading his personality as warm-hearted. But it turns out Joshu used his psychic ability and was just as shocked to confirm the kid's age. Cutting the weirdly emotional moment short, Joshu tells him to follow, no questions asked, cryptically promising he'll find out where they're going soon enough. Takahashi is still sweating over the age reveal, now convinced Joshu is some kind of master of disguise. But their walk is interrupted by Xiaobingbing, who rushes over calling his name, and he turns back, curious about what could possibly be so urgent. She catches up to the two of them in the courtyard, holding out a wrapped object, explaining she found something special while sorting through the weapons they'd retrieved. She presents him with the cloth-wrapped blade, thinking it's a perfect fit for him, adding that she's not sure if it's to his taste. But as he unwraps it, he recognizes the blade's name, Zhenhai. Joshu actually cracks a rare smile, thanking her for the excellent knife, which leaves Xiaobingbing looking incredibly pleased with his reaction. After telling the crew he'll be back in an hour, Joshu heads out with their new recruit, leaving the relative safety of the village behind for a little field trip, and Takahashi immediately asks where they're going, getting a cryptic answer about a familiar place, which turns out to be the mountainside where they hunt for crystal nuclei. This kid panics at the distance, asking if they're at least taking a car, but Joshu shuts that down, telling him he'll be teleporting them there instead. Takahashi gets nervous, admitting he's never actually tried taking a passenger before, so Joshu just grabs his shirt, saying there's only one way to find out. With no choice left, Takahashi tells him to hold on tight and starts powering up, and in a flash of purple light, the two of them disappear from the street. In a flash of purple light, they disappear from the village street, instantly reappearing high above the ground somewhere else entirely, and materialize on the rooftop of a distant building, though the landing is anything but graceful for Takahashi. He ends up dangling off the edge, begging Joshu to pull him up, but Joshu just calmly notes they've only moved 3 kilometers before ordering the exhausted kid to get ready for another jump. Takahashi can barely believe it, asking if they really have to go again, so Joshu clarifies this isn't just travel, it's a test of his ability. With no other choice, Takahashi reluctantly agrees to keep going. With another flash of light, they reappear miles away from the village, materializing high up on a tree branch in the middle of the woods. Takahashi is completely gassed, complaining he's never had to teleport consecutively with a passenger before, but Joshu is having none of it, coldly telling him they're almost there and to keep moving. This kid is practically begging for a break at this point, clearly hitting his limit, but Joshu just stands there silently, offering zero sympathy for his new human taxi service. Realizing he has no choice, Takahashi grits his teeth and starts powering up for one last jump, his face contorting with the strain of pushing his ability this hard, and purple energy swirls around their feet as he activates the teleportation one more time, finally arriving at their destination, leaving him hunched over and asking if the torture is over. After the grueling trip, Josh announces they've finally reached their destination, and he immediately tells Takahashi his teleportation ability is way worse than he imagined, which is definitely not what the exhausted kid wanted to hear after all that effort. Joshu continues his brutal critique, pointing out the terrible accuracy and stamina drain, so Takahashi just laughs nervously, trying to argue that it's still good enough, right? But Joshu suddenly snaps, yelling at him to cut the act right now, his eyes glowing red as he asks how long he planned to keep pretending. This sudden menacing shift completely terrifies Takahashi, who's at a total loss for words, and Joshu grips his new blade, revealing he knows Takahashi is faking his weakness. With his aura flaring to life, he demands to know the real reason he showed up at their village. Cornered by the accusation, Takahashi desperately tries to play dumb, swearing he just wanted a meal. But Joshu's psychic pressure is clearly getting to him, forcing a memory to the surface. A flash of red energy that seems to unlock something he's been hiding, and suddenly Takahashi's entire demeanor shifts as his own purple aura flares to life. A scream echoes from the past, a memory of pure terror, revealing a vision of Joshu as a blood-soaked killer from their previous timeline. Joshu sees this genuine fear and is completely baffled, wondering what could have changed him so drastically, questioning which version of this kid is the real one as Takahashi's expression turns cold. This facade finally shatters, revealing a confident and powerful teleporter who is completely done pretending, and he finally snaps, screaming at Joshu that he's had enough of the games. With his cover blown, Takahashi tries to play tough, claiming he's never been afraid of a fight, but Joshu is completely unfazed by this sudden show of bravado, and a second later, Takahashi is screaming as Joshu grabs him, before casually tossing the kid aside like he weighs nothing at all. He goes flying through the air with one last terrified shriek while Joshu just watches him sail off into the distance, completely deadpan. After a very painful landing, Takahashi is left groaning in a cloud of dust. Joshu calmly walks over, pointing out that at least he didn't try to teleport away, adding that while his combat ability is weak, he can still serve as support. Takahashi finally gets up, realizing this whole terrifying ordeal was just another one of Joshu's tests. Takahashi is still sweating, admitting he thought Joshu was actually going to kill him back there, but Joshu just tells him it's time to get back to the real reason they're out here, meeting up with the rest of the crew, who are waiting by a car deep in the woods. From their vantage point, Joshu gazes down at their target, another small settlement in the valley, explaining their objective, ominously called the fishing grounds, is just a kilometer away. He lays out the plan. He, his brother, and Takahashi are going in as the advance team, while Xiaobingbing and the others will stay behind with the car to provide support. Takahashi immediately gets cold feet, questioning why they'd attack a group that hasn't done anything to them. But Joshu reminds him that in this world, desperate people will do anything for resources. He even gives Takahashi an out, though the kid clarifies he's just worried, not trying to bail. Joshu tries to sell the plan to his brother, insisting this operation has no significant risks, but Takahashi is clearly not convinced, looking like he's about to have a panic attack, and it turns out Zhou Jianhao is also freaking out, calling him crazy for wanting to raid the fishing grounds tonight. Joshu clarifies this isn't a head-on fight, it's a stealth mission to steal their supplies, which seems to confuse the big guy even more than the original plan did, so he explains that nabbing their gunpowder and resources will stop them from attacking. And this logic finally gets through to Zhou Jianhao, who bursts out laughing, now totally on board. His brother, however, brings up the very real problem of getting past their tight security, and Joshu admits he can't do it by himself, looking over with a knowing smirk, because the key to the whole heist is Takahashi and his teleportation ability, a fact that completely blindsides the kid mid-meal. Takahashi is already having a full-blown panic attack, absolutely refusing to be the getaway driver, so his brother tries to reassure him they can just teleport away from any trouble, but the kid is just spiraling, regretting he ever agreed to this impulsive plan. As the advance team prepares, Xiaobingbing hands Joshu a communicator for the support crew, and he immediately asks Lin Jie's sister if she can scout the fishing grounds from their position. She agrees to give it a shot, her eyes glowing yellow as she activates her clairvoyance, getting a direct green-tinted visual on the distant enemy settlement. Her intel is good news. Their numbers have dropped significantly, with only a few strong opponents left, which tells Joshu they need to move immediately before that window of opportunity closes. Zhou Jianhao worries about leaving Xiaobingbing behind, but his mom just smirks, promising to protect her. With his mom confidently holding down the fort for the support crew, Joshu's eyes glow red as he gets ready for the mission, his aura flaring to life as he gives the final signal to move, and the advance team immediately takes off through the moonlit woods. They quickly reach the outskirts of the enemy compound, spotting a single guard at the gate, and Joshu notes the patrols are lighter, deducing their main force must be underground. He radios Xiaobingbing for intel, who reports on the zombie positions inside the base, confirming his plan is working perfectly. The enemy is busy fighting the zombies he lured there. He tells his brother to wait while he and Takahashi scout the infiltration route, then orders the kid to teleport them to a factory corner about 10 meters down. With a strained look, Takahashi tells Joshu to hold on tight for the jump, and with a flash of purple energy, he teleports them from the woods, straight into what looks like the enemy's main storage warehouse, materializing directly on top of a large supply crate. This sudden arrival almost makes Takahashi shout in surprise, but Joe Shu is quick to shush him, demanding absolute silence, noting with relief that the area seems clear for the moment. Takahashi, however, is already trying guns. Back in the woods, Jo Jinhao is getting nervous about how long the scouting trip is taking when a sudden flash of purple light appears right in front of him, revealing Jo Shu and Takahashi, who've returned with a massive stack of supply crates. His brother just stares at the haul, completely baffled by what they managed to grab, and is stunned to find the first crate he opens is absolutely loaded with guns. Jo Shu explains they hit the jackpot. Not just guns, but ammo, meds, and food too, urging them to hurry up and empty the rest of the warehouse before they're discovered. Now seeing the reward, Jo Jinhao is suddenly very eager to join the next teleport run, and Takahashi, looking like he's accepted his fate, agrees to take the big guy along. But back at the warehouse, something is starting to pound against a metal door from the inside. This pounding on the door ends abruptly as a zombie's head is completely obliterated, revealing a blonde-haired fighter who casually announces that the job is done, but his cocky attitude vanishes when another red-eyed zombie lunges from the darkness, which he immediately puts down with a swift and brutal strike to the head. His partner remarks that it was a close call, confirming these are the leaders of the fishing grounds, and he realizes their power is attracting these second-tier zombies right to their doorstep. A third man in a lab coat crushes another zombie's head with his bare hand, calling the situation perfect, since it saves them the trouble of having to hunt the creatures down one by one. This others complain that these zombies are too weak, wishing for a third-tier specimen to control, but the man in the coat gives a chilling warning that if they ever met one, they'd be instantly annihilated. This man in the coat coldly states the only outcome for a zombie bite is death, which has his two partners looking incredibly tense about the situation unfolding, because it turns out one of their own men has been taken down by the infected. This poor guy is on the floor screaming that he's been bitten and is in agony, begging them to save him as the infection already starts turning his eyes red. This blonde leader kneels down, calmly promising they won't just let him die out here, before offering him a strange glowing purple crystal as some kind of solution. He explains that if the man's lucky, this crystal could make him one of them, and the bitten man just stares, his eyes bleeding as the transformation worsens, leaving him with a hell of a choice. Gamble on the crystal or become a zombie. This blonde leader pressures the bitten man to take the crystal and join their ranks, which triggers a flashback to a tense standoff from his past. Right after he'd just finished off some kind of powerful infected, his own partner pulled a gun on him, calling him a mutant, and that one word was clearly enough to set him off. But the other man just repeated the insult, daring him to make a move, causing the blonde leader's power to flare as he prepared to attack. But the man in the lab coat stepped in to stop the fight, insisting their cooperation was a group decision, though the blonde guy was clearly against it, who then turns to the teacher with a very ominous question. This teacher explains his philosophy is all about trimming the unruly branches from their group, warning the blonde leader that the air is thick with sulfur, and another gunshot could be their last, which is a threat the guy clearly doesn't appreciate, but he seems to get the message, ordering his men to switch to knives and hold their fire until he gives the command. Back in the present, the team stands before the mountain of crates they just liberated, and Jo Shu notes this massive haul should be more than enough to arm everyone back home, while his brother can't believe how easily they pulled the whole thing off without a hitch. Jo Shu turns to check on Takahashi, who's looking pretty rough after all that teleporting, and the kid admits that while he's okay, moving that much weight is seriously draining him, prompting Jo Jinhao to suggest they take a quick break before pushing their luck any further. Jo Shu shuts down the idea of a break, reminding them the zombies are only a temporary distraction, asking Takahashi if he can hold on for just one more run to grab the medicine. And though he's clearly exhausted, the kid grits his teeth and agrees to the final jump. With that, Takahashi powers up his ability one last time, enveloping the team in purple energy, teleporting them straight back into the enemy's supply warehouse for their final score. Jo Shu lays out the endgame. They'll grab what they need, then burn the entire place to the ground. But before they can even start moving, Takahashi suddenly collapses, hitting the floor hard, leaving the two brothers completely stunned by what just happened. Jo Jinhao immediately asks if the kid just passed out from exhaustion, but Jo Shu realizes he's overused his powers and tells his brother to get him to safety. Meanwhile, a completely new group of shadowy figures makes their entrance, led by a trio of very serious-looking leaders who are clearly not here to play. Their destination is the medical room, which seems to be their primary target, and inside the warehouse, it's revealed that Jo Shu and Takahashi have been captured. Jo Shu just watches the newcomers with a cold, calculating stare, completely unfazed, as the leaders of this new faction survey their massive prize. This blonde one is impressed, noting this haul is worth the risk it took to get here. But the man in glasses quickly reminds everyone that their deal gives his group the food and medicine. His partner just smirks, agreeing to the terms they'd set up earlier, before he suddenly attacks, aiming a vicious strike right at the man's head. But the attack wasn't aimed at the man's head. It was a tranquilizer dart, which has the blonde leader absolutely furious at this sudden clean betrayal. Before he can react, he's slammed to the ground by the new group's enforcers, and his partner in the lab coat is taken down just as swiftly and efficiently, leaving both of them completely neutralized on the warehouse floor. This new leader with the scar looks down on the blonde guy, mocking his pitiful state, and asks if he really believed they were ever going to share the supplies. He calls them nothing but lucky mutants who don't deserve a seat at the table, pressing a gun to his head while saying that to get the rewards, you need real power. But instead of breaking, the blonde leader just starts laughing like a madman. This new leader demands to know what's so funny, completely oblivious to the real threat. And the blonde guy explains that in this new world, old power structures are meaningless, because the only rule now is survival of the fittest, as his body begins to gruesomely transform. Realizing his mistake, the Scarface leader immediately opens fire with his pistol, but his shots pass right through the morphing man and slam into the guy in the lab coat. To his horror, the bullets just embed themselves harmlessly in the man's skin, leaving the leader stammering that these guys aren't human, they're monsters. He panics and screams for his men to open fire and take the target down, but before they can even react, they're all neutralized by a series of perfect headshots. This shooter is revealed to be Zhou Jianhao, his eyes glowing red as he lines up his next shot. Watching the chaos from behind a crate, Zhou Shu smirks at the predictable backstabbing, and Zhou Jianhao quietly asks about Takahashi, since their escape plan depends on him. But Zhou Shu confirms the kid is still unconscious, leaving them stuck for now. So his new plan is to just let these two factions completely destroy each other. Meanwhile, the Scarface leader tries backing away from the man in glasses, who's now calling the shots, desperately bluffing that his powerful allies won't let this betrayal slide. But the new leader just calmly informs him that those allies are already dead, explaining his assassins were waiting from the start because cooperation was never the plan. And holding up a small dart, he declares there's no room for two powers in this new world, before ending the man's era with a single silent strike. With the previous leader dealt with, the man in glasses calmly surveys his new domain, immediately ordering a red-eyed subordinate to handle some intruders lurking outside the grounds. But the guy complains he's still getting used to his new body. A hell of an excuse, and his partner isn't buying it, calling him out for slacking since this isn't his first body swap. After getting called out, the red-eyed soldier reluctantly heads off to take care of business, leaving the other man to ask the boss how they're even supposed to move all these supplies. But the leader tells him to hold on, because they have a more immediate problem to solve, explaining that before they touch a single crate, they need to clear out the rats hiding inside. Of course, he's talking about Zhou Shu, who's been watching this entire takeover from the shadows, and the leader reveals he knows they're here because of the muddy footprints leading into the warehouse. This new leader smirks, deciding it's time to teach these hidden rats some discipline, and he calls out to Zhou Shu, asking if he's finally decided to show himself. But before Zhou Shu can even react, another fight is already kicking off elsewhere, as that red-eyed subordinate from before makes his move against the other intruders, launching himself forward in a blur of motion with blades at the ready. His target, a cocky blonde guy, just smirks, asking if he's come back to get put down again. But the subordinate ignores the taunt and continues his high-speed assault, which doesn't seem to bother the blonde guy at all as he summons a ball of blue energy, unleashing a massive beam that rips right through the warehouse shelves, and the subordinate can only stare in shock as the attack barrels straight for him. This red-eyed subordinate narrowly dodges the energy beam, zipping through the air, while the blonde attacker just mocks him for trying to hide in the narrow aisles. But the subordinate just smirks, having finished his little maneuver, as he slices through some overhead cables to change his trajectory, using the momentum to launch himself down from above for a surprise attack. This cable snaps, and he comes crashing down with incredible force, taking the blonde guy completely by surprise and smashing him into the ground. Back inside, his partner confirms the target is down, but their leader warns him not to celebrate just yet. He's already locked onto a much bigger threat, using his ability to pull up their full stats. This leader stares down his newly discovered targets, completely unfazed by their presence. So with their cover blown, Zhou Shu and Zhou Jianhao decide it's time to fight, launching themselves forward. They unleash a combined assault, surrounding the man in a storm of red energy, but Zhou Jianhao's attack glances right off the leader's neck without leaving a single scratch. Zhou Shu is floored, realizing their opponent's skin is as tough as solid iron, and knowing a direct hit is useless, he quickly switches to a new strategy. He yells out to his brother, challenging him to a spar right then and there, and Zhou Jianhao immediately catches on, roaring back his agreement to the plan. These two brothers then turn on each other, powering up their abilities as if to fight, before unleashing a massive combined explosion with the leader caught right in the center. Zhou Shu bets their combined attack will bypass the man's tough skin and wreck him from the inside, his eyes glowing with the full force of his power. But instead of taking damage, the leader just starts absorbing their energy, standing completely unfazed as the red aura swirls around him. Zhou Shu recognizes the ability with dawning horror, calling him the Blood Butcher, and his brother realizes this guy is literally feeding on their powers. This leader seems impressed, commenting on the high quality of their abilities, noting Zhou Shu's multiple powers before deciding it is utterly repulsive. With the negotiations officially over, Zhou Jianhao grabs Takahashi and tells his brother it's time to go, but the leader doesn't even move to stop them, just watching calmly as the two make a break for the exit. As they run, Zhou Shu glances back with a chilling promise to hunt them all down, which still gets absolutely no reaction from the man in charge, because he's just flicked open a lighter, ready to spring whatever trap he's laid for them. He drops the lighter onto a trail of powder leading right back to the exit, which immediately ignites in a fiery fuse, and Joshu realizes way too late what this guy's real plan was. This entire warehouse goes up in a massive explosion, meant to bury them inside, while somewhere in the woods their getaway driver is trying to get a hold of them, frantically calling for Joshu over the radio with no response. Her partner confirms the line is dead, leaving them completely in the dark, so the driver reports the explosion she just saw, unable to get a clear visual, until she activates her own ability, her eyes glowing a bright gold, giving her a perfect bird's-eye view of the warehouse getting absolutely obliterated. Through her golden-eyed vision, she spots a dark shape moving within the smoke, which seems to have massive spikes or claws sticking out of its side. This sight leaves her completely stunned and terrified, and her partner has no idea what she's seeing that's causing such a reaction. She reports that a third-tier zombie just moved inside the wreckage, confirming with her ability that some kind of monster is now awake and active. Back at Ground Zero, Joshu emerges from the rubble, coughing from the blast, and Jo Jianhao immediately runs over to check if he's alright. After confirming he's fine, Jo Jianhao's first question is about Takahashi's condition, and Joshu glances over, reporting that their unconscious cargo is also okay. Joshu points out that Takahashi somehow slept through the entire explosion, completely knocked out, and Jo Jianhao can't believe it, remarking that the kid is really something else. While Joshu regrets losing the supplies, his brother says it's better than letting those superhumans get them, which leads Jo Jianhao to bring up the topic of those very same people, asking his brother if he knows more about them, sensing there's a backstory here. Joshu just dismisses their zombie is now fully awake and active. Back at the getaway car, their driver is still frantically trying to reach them on the radio, screaming a warning that the monster has moved and they need to get out now. Her partner tries to calm her down, suggesting the signal is just blocked underground, but the driver's face is filled with pure dread, clearly not convinced, prompting the other woman to remark how her son is already causing so much trouble. This driver tries to explain her panic, but her partner just gives her a knowing look, starting a whole speech about how she always worried about her clumsy husband's explosive hobbies, and explaining that worrying alone is useless without taking practical action yourself. She gives a hard stare, thinking about how when men aren't reliable, it's up to the women to get the job done, a truly comforting thought right now. Meanwhile, back at the wreckage, the third-tier zombie swings its massive arm down with killing intent, and Jo Jianhao throws himself in front of his brother to block the devastating blow. This impact sending out a massive shockwave as their powers collide. He somehow manages to hold the monster's arm back, but it's taking everything he has, and he realizes with horror that this thing didn't just survive the blast, it actually got stronger. Joshu finally understands, realizing this monster's power is some kind of adaptive supercell ability, and the leader, now fully transformed, is actually impressed Joshu figured out his power so quickly. He explains that his cells have a natural defense mechanism against any kind of threat, automatically reinforcing his body to match the exact nature and level of the danger he's facing. But once he hit Tier 2, his cells didn't just defend, they started absorbing and converting external energy, which he demonstrates by forming a weapon from the very same power they just hit him with. With his new power-up ready, he immediately lunges forward to put it to the test, forcing Joshu and his brother to brace for the incoming assault, their own auras flaring up. This leader closes the distance in an instant, swinging his energy-charged arm right at them, and the two brothers meet his attack head-on, their combined fists clashing in a massive impact. This brother's combined attack slams into the leaders, but the monster's strength is on another level, and he effortlessly overpowers them both, sending them flying back from the sheer force of the impact. Jo Jianhao grits his teeth, realizing they're completely outmatched in this direct clash of power, before the leader follows up with another blast, sending him hurtling through the air, and he crashes hard into the rubble, completely taken out of the fight for now. Seeing his brother go down, Joshu screams out his name in a panic, which just draws the monster's full, undivided attention right onto him. With his back against the wall, Joshu's eyes begin to glow with both of his powers at once, planting his feet firmly as he prepares to go all in with a final desperate move, and he lunges forward, channeling all his remaining energy into one last punch. This leader effortlessly catches Joshu's desperate, all-in punch without even breaking a sweat, completely nullifying the attack as the red energy just fizzles out against his massive form. He explains that the stronger the threat he faces, the more powerful his adaptive cells become, meaning Joshu's best shot is literally just making his enemy even stronger. With a terrifying grin, he boasts that as long as his cells are active, he's basically immortal. Meanwhile, the two women from the getaway car have finally arrived at the warehouse gates, and the driver spots the bodies of the guards, wondering if Joshu was responsible for this. Her partner quickly shuts that down, pointing out they were shot, not taken out by powers. At that exact moment, a body comes flying out from inside, crashing hard against the gate, and the older woman quickly shoves her friend back, telling her to be careful. Turns out one of the leader's men survived, now complaining about the mess after dealing with his former allies, and he casually does a head count of the bodies, making sure he didn't miss anyone in the chaos, before confirming they're all down and raising his weapon to make absolutely sure they stay that way, pulling the trigger without a second of hesitation to finish the job properly, and a bullet slams into one of the downed guards, revealing the two women hiding just feet away. This sudden, close-range execution completely startles the driver, blowing their cover instantly, which brings a smug grin to the guard's face as he announces he's found 2 more survivors, leaving the younger woman to panic, asking her partner what on earth they're supposed to do now. But her partner just gives her a steely look, telling her not to worry and to leave this to her, as the two of them step out into the open with their hands raised in surrender. This guard asks if they're working with the two brothers from earlier, clearly pretty damn clear as he sizes them up. But the older woman suddenly screams out a name, Jojua, which completely catches the guard off guard, making him turn to see who she's yelling at. And she uses that split-second distraction to charge forward with surprising speed, closing the distance in a blur before he can even raise his weapon. Instead of panicking, the guard just gets a twisted grin, impressed by her skills and ready for a fight, and she stands her ground, looking more than willing to give him one. With Joshu pinned against the rocks, the leader starts monologuing about his unique abilities, noting how he can use two powers at once and seems to know about the new world. And now he's demanding Joshu spill all of his secrets while choking him out. Joshu just struggles against the grip, his eyes glowing with a defiant red light, as a sudden chill fills the air from him activating his ice powers, which makes the leader pause, demanding to know what he's doing. But instead of answering, Joshu just starts laughing right in his face, prompting the monster to angrily ask what he could possibly find so amusing. Joshu calls out his arrogance, mocking his delusion of being some god-chosen ruler, and points out the irony that he was ultimately beaten by the very prey he looked down on. This leader tightens his grip, taunting Joshu to push harder, clearly enjoying the struggle, before slamming him down into the rubble with a massive burst of red energy. Joshu is left completely wrecked from the impact, bloodied but somehow still conscious, and the monster scoffs, refusing to believe any of his enemies' defiant words. But Joshu just keeps talking, calmly suggesting that if gods truly exist in this world, then a monster like him is nothing more than one of their abandoned children. That insult finally hits a nerve, and the leader absolutely loses his composure, channeling all of his rage into one final, overwhelming attack. And he brings both fists down with enough force to shatter the entire area, completely engulfing Joshu in a devastating, explosive finish. But even after that massive hit, Joshu is still standing, his own red aura flaring defiantly, and the leader looks over the destruction, assuming the fight is finally over, until a frozen, pale hand suddenly grabs his leg from out of the rubble. He looks down, completely baffled by the intense chill spreading through his body, as the icy grip tightens, seemingly draining the heat right out of him. Realizing this isn't Joshu, he furiously accuses him of some kind of betrayal, and Joshu just smirks, admitting that if he can't win, he'll just call for backup. Turns out that backup is one of the leader's own men, now a frostbitten corpse reanimated by Joshu's power, screaming for fire. This new ice zombie lunges forward, desperate to get to the warmth radiating from its former boss, and the leader can only stare in disbelief as his own subordinate comes right for him. With the ice zombie buying them a precious few seconds, Joshu helps his injured brother limp away, telling him they need to find someone named Takahashi and escape this disaster zone immediately. But a sudden flash of red energy slices through the air right behind them, instantly tearing through the reanimated corpse that was holding the leader down. Joshu looks back in complete disbelief, realizing his desperate plan just failed spectacularly. Meanwhile, back at the warehouse entrance, the situation is just as tense, as the older woman faces off against the last remaining guard with a pair of blades. She moves with surprising speed, landing a clean strike right across his face, sending the guy tumbling to the ground, completely outmatched by her skill. With the threat neutralized, she just stares down, her expression cold and resolved. This younger woman can only stare in awe at her partner's hidden skills, while the downed guard has a crisis, unable to believe he lost to a woman, and she just mocks him, calling him more of a training partner than a coach. That insult sends him into a rage, and he lunges for his fallen weapon, but the older woman calls out for an iron rod, needing an equalizer fast, and her friend immediately throws a tire iron right into her hands. She catches it just as the guard finally gets a grip on his gun, closing the distance with the makeshift weapon before he can even aim, and a brutal swing sends him crashing face-first into the dirt, completely stunned. Wasting no time, her expression full of rage and malice, until we realize she's fighting back internally, screaming for whoever's controlling her to get out. This entity controlling the woman is furious, screaming that her consciousness should have been completely erased, but she just laughs, mocking the foul taste of its soul, and compares it to the Walking Dead as a strange blue energy begins to crackle from her eye. Suddenly, this new power erupts from her body, causing the entity to panic and scream about the intense heat, begging her to stop as the blue flames grow stronger. But she's completely engulfed, seemingly sacrificing herself to purge the parasite from her body. Back at the main fight, the monster leader stands victorious over the remains of his reanimated subordinate, while Joshu looks on, his last-ditch escape plan having completely fallen apart. This leader turns his attention back to the brothers, asking if they seriously thought they could escape, before telling Joshu that since he attracted this new power, he's not getting away either. Joshu just scoffs, completely unimpressed by the leader's empty threats, as the monster roars that everyone is going to die right here, right now. But his victory speech is cut short when another one of his own men is suddenly struck down. A frozen blue hand has punched straight through his chest from behind, and the leader can only stare in shock as the ice rapidly consumes his subordinate. In seconds, the man's body crystallizes completely before shattering into 1,000 pieces. But the horror isn't over, as yet another one of his fallen men begins to freeze solid from the feet up, this new ice zombie, stumbling forward while groaning about the unbearable cold. Turns out Joshu is controlling them all, his eyes now glowing with a chilling blue power, and his newest puppet fixates on the leader, groaning that it needs his heat. Turns out Joshu's brother has powers now too, his eyes glowing with that same chilling blue energy, and as one of the ice zombies lumbers forward, he decides to test out his new abilities by leaping in and trying to take one of them down with his knife. He manages to land a clean hit, but the reanimated corpse barely seems to notice, and unfortunately his new power is a bit too effective, freezing his own hands solid on contact. He realizes in frustration that he can't even lift his weapon anymore, completely losing his grip, and in that moment of weakness, another one of the ice zombies grabs him by the throat, its touch instantly spreading a layer of frost right across his neck. This zombie itself seems to be in agony, driven mad by the unbearable cold of its own body, before it suddenly leaps away, leaving the brother standing there, half frozen and exposed. Before the zombie can do anything else, it's impaled by a sudden blast of energy from below, which is immediately followed by a massive pillar of blue light erupting from the ground. As the energy subsides, a single frozen hand pushes its way out of the rubble, revealing the older woman from the warehouse, now glowing with a blue aura and asking her son if he needs help. Xiaozhuo is completely stunned by this impossible reunion, recognizing his own mother, who calmly asks if Bing is around too. And just like that, the three of them are reunited in the middle of the disaster zone. Bing immediately notices Xiaozhuo's injury, pointing out his frostbitten hand, but he brushes it off, insisting he's fine while looking past her with concern, because his brother Zhou Shu is slumped against the rocks, clearly in much worse shape. Bing points out the monster leader, and the mother confirms he's the one who hurt her family, her expression turning absolutely lethal as she promises a world of hurt for touching her people. She blurs past one of the ice zombies, moving with impossible speed right for the main target, and gathering a ball of pure blue energy, she declares the monster is already dead, before leaping into the air and unleashing a massive blast of that same power. This attack slams down, engulfing the entire area in a pillar of freezing energy, instantly trapping the monster leader inside a massive block of solid ice. He's completely encased from head to toe, seemingly neutralized for good, but of course he just shatters the entire thing from the inside, roaring as he breaks free. At the same time, Xiaozhuo isn't just watching, summoning his own blue blade to handle another zombie. Xiaozhuo immediately puts his new powers to the test, driving a blade of pure ice into a zombie, and the chilling energy begins to spread rapidly from the point of impact, overloading the reanimated corpse with a wave of freezing power, which then erupts in a massive burst of blue light, leaving the zombie completely neutralized with a hole blown straight through its chest. Joshu watches from the sidelines, thinking the fight is finally over, and the mother admits that taking down these things was a lot tougher than she'd expected. He tells Xiaozhuo to grab his brother so they can all regroup and get out of there. But Bing suddenly screams a warning, her eyes glowing gold, yelling that someone isn't dead yet, just as a massive wall of ice erupts from the ground, blocking their path completely. This reanimated corpse screams in agony as Xiaozhuo's ice power consumes it from the inside, while his mother gathers her own blue energy, preparing to deal with another one of the threats, unleashing a wave of freezing power that completely engulfs one of the remaining zombies. And Xiaozhuo himself is a whirlwind of blue flames, cutting down another enemy with his ice blade, driving the frozen weapon straight through its chest to finish the job for good. Watching from the sidelines, Joshu realizes they still can't hurt the main boss, and he's too weak for a final blow, barely able to kneel as he watches the family he can no longer protect fight on, leaving another one of the ice zombies completely frozen solid, a monument to their new power. But then Joshu's eyes lock onto something that was dropped in the chaos, a small open box containing a strange glowing purple crystal. His eyes lock onto the glowing crystal, realizing it must belong to the person from earlier, while his mother's fight against the monster leader continues to escalate nearby, and she realizes with horror that the creature is somehow getting even stronger. Knowing she can't win alone, she screams for Xiaozhuo and Bing to retreat with Joshu, but Bing hesitates, her golden eyes flaring with indecision. Admitting to herself that her own abilities are completely useless in a direct fight like this, she decides their only option is to get the injured Joshu to safety first. But as she turns to find Xiaozhuo, his mother unleashes another desperate attack, forming a massive blade of pure ice energy and launching it right at the monster, which slams into the ground with enough force to shatter the entire area. This mother's desperate attack completely backfires, leaving her slammed against the rocks and screaming in pain, while even one of the ice zombies is caught in the blast, crying out in agony, and the monster leader just mocks them, asking why they all love playing the rear guard so much. He grabs one of the zombies by the head, deciding it's just a family thing as his own eyes start glowing red, which makes the mother scream out a warning to Xiaozhuo, realizing something is very wrong. Turns out the boss just leveled up, completing some kind of blood butcher evolution, and he immediately tests out his new strength with a devastating slash of red energy, tearing a massive trench straight through the battlefield toward his targets, and completely obliterating one of the remaining ice zombies in the process. He stands alone in the aftermath, surrounded by shattered ice, looking more powerful than ever. But the boss's power-up is reflected in Xiaozhuo's eyes, which now glow with that same menacing red pattern, and he's suddenly engulfed in a matching red aura, raising his own knife to the sky. With a single swing, he unleashes a devastating wave of red energy across the battlefield, completely obliterating one of the remaining ice zombies in a flash of light. After the chaos subsides, he quietly sheathes his weapon, the fight seemingly over, and looking out at the horizon, he calmly says it's time to go home.